6, Virginia, Brazil. A UFO crash lands, setting the whole town into a frenzy. 3 girls just so happen to have a moment of contact with a strange being. The U.S. government finds out and covers everything up. Craft, material, bodies. All evidence is quickly recovered, never to be seen again. Since 1947, the military has been covering up all evidence of humanity being visited by a non-human intelligence. All documents have been sealed, lost, or damaged beyond recognition, leaving the U.S. government free to keep this pivotal information from the entire human race. But what gives them the right to make decisions on behalf of all of humanity? Acting as a god above all gods, they alter our reality, making most doubt their very perceptions. But we give them the power to rule, not the other way around. Some that have been brave enough to stand out and speak the truth have done just that. And now, we, the people, want the whole truth.
Mission Control, please be informed there is a Santa Claus. Oh God, you wouldn't believe it. There are other craft out here, lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon with us. They're on the moon, watching us. Look at that thing. There's a whole fleet of them. Those are giant things. No. This is not an optical illusion. No one is going to believe this.
We are ready. The whole world is ready for true disclosure, without holding back any information. We can decide how we see our reality on our own, without Uncle Sam's hand. Stop holding our civilization back, treating us like children. The truth will reveal itself, and you won't be able to stop it or deny it forever. The truth is inevitable. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is inevitable. We are going to find out the truth. And today, I am with you right now. My name, of course, is Marquise, a.k.a. Dr. Door. Yes, Dr. Door is back by popular demand, by the way. Coley and me have gone off on different projects. So I decided, you know what? I can't stop. We got to keep going. So I decided to go back to, again, because of popular demand, Dr. Door, which I thought was kind of funny because I thought people forgot about me. They did not forget about Dr. Door. So let's have this conversation today. And today we are on Helix Rock Radio. That is on rockradio.live. We're also going to be on Facebook at Dimensions of Reality podcast on Facebook and on Spotify at Dimensions of Reality podcast on Spotify. So all this is going to be going on at once. So this is going to be great. This is going to be today about, I know you've all heard it already. A lot of it's been said. It's going to be about the Lue Elizondo book, but also the kind of the backlash and the comments that have come out and the videos that have come out afterwards, the interviews he's done since on the Joe Rogan Experience and other places. We're gonna talk about all that and some really interesting information from other people connected to what I think is a disclosure effort. People like Jim Semivan, people like Leslie Keene, Ralph Blumenthal, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, and many, many others, because there's a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of chatter on Twitter, and we're going to talk about all of it. You've already heard about the book, you know about the book, but we're going to go over our perspective and thoughts about it. A lot of it's going to be about Lue, what we think about Lue, whether we think he's an honest person or a dishonest person, whether we think, and you know my position. Y'all know I'm a Lue fan. But Eric Marcum, we got Eric on us with us today. He's got a very unique perspective that, by the way, has changed since reading the book. And I don't want to put his perspective in any way other than his own words. So let's bring Eric on to talk about Lue, his book, the latest interviews, and the latest comments on the internet. What's up, Eric?
Hey, how's it going, Marquise?
It is going fantastic. It's a great day, man. It's a great day. So, Eric, you read the book.
Yes.
How do you feel about the book? What's your overall feeling about the book?
There's a lot of good information in there. There was I made myself read it, okay? Because first of all, I started out sort of as wasn't a big fan of Lue, but then I realized I hadn't really looked into the story in any depth, into what he was saying. And as I read the book, I thought, as I'm reading some of the recaps of stuff that I'd already read and heard before, I thought all this is It's a money grab for the UFO community.
Mm.
But got past some of that expositional material and got into the meat of his story, and I started to come around, think, there's more to this guy than just somebody trying to make money off the UAP crowd. So there was some of the gimmicky things, like leaving the redacted pages in there. I hope in later editions that gets removed. Because to me that was just an unnecessary gimmick. But all in all, I came out. I went in with my doubts, and I came out. I still have some doubts, but I'm leaning much more toward the guy's telling the truth. At least he's telling the truth as it's been presented to him, and we can unroll that later if you want.
We're gonna unroll a lot of things. That was actually the first part was about Lue. Like, what do we think his motivations are? Why do we think he wrote the book? What do you think his purpose was? Just like you, man. Unlike you, I kind of came into this with a perspective. I thought that Lue was a good guy. I listened to all of his interviews before. I watched him several times. I read his comments. I read about him. What do people that know him say? What do people that have talked to him say? How do they view him? How does Leslie Kean view him? How does Gary Nolan view him? How do people that have been in the public eye? Pretty much everyone had a unanimous opinion about Lue. A great guy, stand-up guy, a patriot, somebody who's proud of having served our country, and felt like he could not stand for not just a secrecy, but something, just the idea that there was a truth that needed to be told to the world, not just to you American people, but of course initially but to the world, that it is unethical, and it didn't feel right not talking about and telling to the public. Another perspective I thought was important is his credentials, which I'm going to get into here in a second. I don't want to just list. Everybody knows who Lue was, what he did, and his work, but we're gonna talk about specifically what that is. I thought that was a big deal, knowing the caliber of human being this guy is, the caliber of American citizen he is an unimpeachable guy. Him and Grush, I think, are unimpeachable men. And for me, it wasn't like, is this book going to change my perspective about Lue? It was, what more can I learn about Lue that I haven't heard already? And I think that to me was very important, because I did not know about his life and his father and his mother and his relationship with them, and him growing up as a child. And that was a big deal for me. I got to know who Lue Elizondo really is, what made him become the man he is today. We got a taste of that from his childhood up to the point where he was making decisions with authority. He told us a little bit about that too, about working at Guantanamo Bay and having this special code name. And there's a lot of things that we learned about Lue that I never knew before, but other people did. And I think that helped frame their perspective after getting to know him and who he is. That's how I start off with this.
Yeah, when you look at like Chris Mellon, just like you said, the people who came out and said, yes, this is what I think of Lue, and it just you can judge a guy by who he hangs out with, and he's in some very top tier company. The people he's hanging out with aren't, to me, they're not sensationalists. No. They're not. Yeah, he's, like I said, I came away from, like you said, you learn a lot about him personally, and he is rather self-effacing. I mean, if what he's done is true, the man is a bit, he won't admit it, but he is a bit of a hero.
He is.
I mean, he didn't do it single-handedly, but this man gives up a career, a very good paying career.
Yeah.
To
20
be
years
basically, yeah. I mean, to be a whistleblower, I mean, you're not going to make the money on the UFO circuit that he was making as, a GS-15.
GS-15.
What my Uncle Paul, who was in the Navy, called GS God. I mean, at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
like he does a very good. He's very humble in his presentation about himself. He mentioned, hey, and not just the book, but in interviews afterwards, that he did like he kind of was the guy, like a very high level person, but there were higher level people than him that sometimes he would serve as a kind of a surrogate for. He was a very very high level important person.
yeah,
I mean, what was it? They were saying, like, again, it's on X, and hearing from some of the other professionals out there that he was the kind of guy that was in a position to know. If you were gonna know something, Lue was the guy to know. Now, I didn't know that Lue was like the dawn of the Pentagon or DoD, whatever, Department of Defense. I didn't know he had that level of like prestige, but he honestly had that level of prestige. I'm gonna list off some of the things that he did. I do have them here, but so the one thing that he did work for national security. He worked in intelligence, specifically for counterintelligence, counterterrorism. Now I know people have there's a lot of controversy. They're like, oh, you can't trust anyone from the intelligence community because of Richard Doty. I find it also ironic that those who usually, not everyone, I think there are some honest people with questions, but many of those who usually have that hesitation will also talk to Doty as if he's telling the truth, which is kind of confusing. It's like, wait. What is it about? I've always asked, what is it about Lue Elizondo that so many in the community don't like? That they do like, again, a guy who is unimpeachable, ethical. His credibility, and his character are well known within in the intelligence community, and the military, and of course even in the political atmosphere. Why would they think of him as a bad person, as these counter intel against the American population, but not Richard Doty, who is literally a counterintelligence agent against the American people?
yeah.
I don't understand. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Better press.
Better press. I think.
Yeah, you didn't have higher ups at the Pentagon trying
Yeah.
to, discredit and you know basically ruin Doty, where you had him coming after Lue Elizondo.
Oh yeah. I mean, they literally gave a tip to that reporter, that alleged reporter, whatever he is. Hey, look here on Lue. He's got. Or, I'm sorry, on David Grush. He's got some dirt on him. Here, use this. So obviously, there are people that are against Lue. They're against Grush. They're against the entire movement of what we would call, disclosure. There is a movement, but it's also interesting how the movement is not unified. What I mean by that is that there's a couple of things. The first thing that I think is interesting when it comes to not being unified is that there are a small faction of people within government, the intelligence. I mean, you got people as high up as the inspector general of the intelligence community, um, down to to politicians that are up front. Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna, and Matt Gaetz, and then of course we've even got Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, who is one who was a part of this whole disclosure process in a very small way. My point is to go from like really important to like not necessarily not important, but just on a smaller scale. What ambient effect do these people have? And they have an effect. He's well known among all of them, but they're a small faction against an even more powerful, larger faction who doesn't want this to get out. Now, I don't want to jump the gun because we'll get into intentions, we'll get into all that stuff more off, but I do want to plant a seed. Um, the question is, are the people that are trying to keep this secret the ones behind the secrecy? Or is the intelligence behind the secrecy? We'll get to that a little bit later because I think that's a part of the part where we're going to talk about the intentions of not just the government, not just the DoD, not just TIC, the people that are the factions that are against disclosure, but also about the phenomenon and what it might represent according to what we know and what people think and believe as well. So Lue, like I said, Lue again, I embellish. He's unimpeachable. He was a director of ATIP. Let's just go over a little bit here. John Greenwald Jr. did post on his YouTube channel and on X that the FOIA was blocking him from getting more accurate information about Lue Elizondo's, specifically being director of ATIP. John Greenwald has changed his tune towards Elizondo, which I cannot believe, at least in terms of his claim about working for ATIP. Now, listen, there was this other controversy, which I'm not going to get into too much. Eric Davis making claim that Elizondo was not the leader of ATIP, that he may have been embellishing. That was on X. I refuse to engage in that because I think that that's fuel for the haters. By the way, Eric Davis is going to talk to Lue Elizondo. That's posted as well. They're going to have a one-on-one conversation to clarify what that is. There was another program that Lue Elizondo did run, and it was called ATIP. He did run a program called ATIP that apparently was separate from the ATIP that Eric Davis worked on. That, I believe, is where the crux of the controversy lies, but the public doesn't know that, and apparently these programs are so secret that not even the people in the secret programs know about other people that are working on similar projects.
Yep,
My
compartmentalization.
gosh.
You don't need to know. You don't know. Yeah. So yeah, and it makes sense that the acronyms would stack up and that you would have two of the same. So yeah. So for him to say, well, he didn't have anything to do with ATIP, which ATIP? There's probably several others out there that we haven't even heard of. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say flying saucers in the ether. It says Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That could mean a lot of things. Russian assets and all, whatever. China's assets and the aerospace assets. It could be anything. It's not specific to phenomena. It's specific to aerospace threats. So that's where the controversy lies. I just think that people are they're suspending their natural and at many times very good analytical skills, their ability to see through the veil that's always right in front of us to try to block us from seeing the truth. They're usually good at catching this stuff. Oh, wait a minute. There's hyper compartmentalization. Instead, they're almost suspending their intelligence to create controversy about Lue. I think not because they're not intelligent. I think because of perspective, because of belief, because of almost a religious zeal towards a perspective about the phenomena, which many people from all sides of this phenomena, this whole field have. Some people believe they're aliens from Zeta Reticuli, and that's all there is. Some people believe that they're from, the Draco system, and they're whatever. I made that up, by the way. They're from, they're Dracos from another solar system. Some people believe they're cryptoterrestrial. They've been here and they're underground, and we don't know. I do believe there is a multitude of different types of phenomena, or at least one that is functioning in many different ways that appear to be multiple different phenomena. I don't know, but it's not just one single manifestation.
I think one of the things about Lue Elizondo is we've been up and down this, he's almost too good to be true, and we've gotten cynical. I mean, I've been following this. I'm 61 now. I've been following this since I'm old enough to follow it. I grew up on shows like In Search of, and just Star Trek. Go back to, I'm a child of the 60s. That, to me, it was almost like, how could there not be extraterrestrial? And now here comes Lue Elizondo, and when he delivers, like you said on that Joe Rogan interview, no ahs, mental pauses. I mean, boom, boom, boom. The guy's narrative, the way he gives his story is amazing. It's not like he's having to think of, it's like, okay, I don't have to think about covering a lie. That it's like, dude, he's just out there. It doesn't change.
So,
it's the same facts.
This is what's amazing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't even gonna talk about that. That wasn't something I really thought about. Excellent. He delivers it like a man who has command over the information. I know what I'm talking about. I am professional. I know my work. I know what I've done, and he's very confident and secure. And also his delivery shows you that he's a man of honesty. Just like you said, that was perfect. By the way, that was perfect.
But like, we've had so many people come forward that on the surface, or at the beginning, you're like, wow, this guy really, and then it turns out later that they're not. And I think we've gotten to where it's going to take time. More people are going to. His story is going to have to stand up. It's going to have to be out there, and it's going to take a while for him not to get knocked down into the mud with some of his predecessors. And then I think it will actually get a second bump of momentum as more people come along and say, hey, this guy is for real. Just the simple matter of fact way he said, they're here.
They're here.
You know,
They're here,
they're
folks.
here.
He said that before, by
Yeah.
the way. They're here, folks. That's it.
It's like,
He makes. We're going to talk about some of his statements too. There were some statements that I thought were super interesting, but I wanted to. Again, I kind of got. This is me, ADHD here, full blast. Ton of caffeine I took right before this, and we're a little bit earlier than usual, so I am wired for this. But yes. So like I said, he was counterintelligence. He was he served in Afghanistan. He was in South Korea, Latin America, the Caribbeans, Middle East. He's got a pretty extensive military background. Now he's a veteran, and he's been in multiple different conflict zones. He's not somebody who hasn't seen conflict. He has seen conflict. I did not know he was he has a degree in microbiology and immunology. That from the University of Miami. That was interesting to me.
yes.
What is a microbiologist studying aerospace threats for? I get it now, but having seen that, like, wait a minute, why did you? There is some clarity that I need about why transition from that to this, but I can see the overall picture as to why he got in, being in of the caliber that he was as a counterintelligence officer. I think it wasn't necessarily his microbiology degree; it was the fact that he can get one. He's intelligent enough to get a degree in microbiology. I think that's the point of having him transition to other fields that require a great level of intelligence. My headphone just fell off. So here's what I think is interesting, and that's just the part about his background is we get it. But I do want to ask you a question because again, I know everybody knows my position. I want to know what you thought was the most revelatory or shocking, surprising comment that you heard from Lue's book, and then of course from the subsequent interviews that released in the days after.
I'm not sure if there was that aha, oh, that's, but it was just in the back of my mind, it's like we've had these 3 gun camera footage films released. And he's talking about he has seen stuff that makes that look like nothing. And in the back of my mind, it's, oh my God, if this guy ever does get a chance to, the stuff he has seen that he's not at liberty, that he can't disclose, my God, what, what more could there be? I mean, just, we're seeing these craft outmaneuvering our best, nearly our best fighter aircraft. And he's seen stuff that's even more impressive than that. I guess that was what, when he's talking about that, he can't disclose, but he can say, hey, for all that, I've seen better. And you just say, oh my God, walking around with all those kind of secrets in your head and having the moral fortitude not to say anything about it, to keep those secrets, even now, even after the hatchet job they tried to do on him, that he is, I think that goes back to the caliber person he is. If you have any doubts, here's a guy that if anybody deserved to lash out and say, well, you're going to do that, let me just spill the beans completely. And he did not. He remained true to the oath, the non-disclosure agreement, and his oath. And it's to me, that just puts him way up there.
Yeah, there was to be totally honest, there were a ton of quotes that I thought were quite interesting, but I also I think for me, there were some things that I didn't expect to hear from somebody, again, from his position. Comment that I got from him was, we are not alone. We have crashed objects, and that's a fact. That's a quote by him, by the way. He's
and I think the one where we've recovered and we have recovered
that was
biological. As a biologist, my degree encompasses both of his with the microbiome. Pardon me, I'm a published microbiologist myself, and I had to study, the immunology as just one of the many facets of what I do. So, I have to admit, when I read that, it was like, okay, I'm starting to like this guy. my own personal bias, I have to admit.
Man.
As a biologist, I also all right, I'm starting to give him the benefit of the doubt. So, full disclosure there. But yeah, when
Yeah,
he
I mean,
said that we actually have biological trace, we have bodies. And it's like, if the rest of what he's saying is true, my God, that was I guess to me, that was probably
that was
the
like a big
biggest,
aha
oh
moment
my
for you.
God, when are we going to see that? Instead of just a infrared blip going across the screen, when are we
Yeah,
actually going to see,
oh
you know,
no, oh
let me
no,
see the biology. Let me see how their internal organs function.
yeah.
What do we know about these? Yeah, that was that I would have to say that was probably, as I was reading, the thing that just made the whole wow sign go
That was a
off.
wow moment for you. Yeah, I mean, I have to say there were a couple. Let me just list a couple other comments here. So the orbs, the orbs were a pretty big deal for me. So in his book, oh, by the way, real quick before I move on to that, he also mentioned that Roswell. This is again coming from him. This is a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. Roswell was real. There were two
That's what
crashes,
happened.
not just one.
Yep.
But in the one crash, the one crash, this craft got away. The other craft, they did not. It happened during an EMP blast that was happening somewhere around the site, and that he thinks that it may have been the thing that disrupted the UFO and made it crash, disrupted its navigation systems or whatever, and made it crash. Maybe, or a propulsion system. I don't know. He said maybe that's what happened. He doesn't know because there could be an alternative possibility for that crash as well, but we'll get into that in a second. He said that they recovered 4 crashed bodies from that craft. That was a big deal. That was, I mean, you remember hearing about Roswell. There was a couple documentaries about the Roswell witnesses, that the townspeople, the people that lived in Roswell, who the military were knocking on their doors, threatening to kill them for talking about what happened. That is
Yep.
that's not conjecture or lore. That is a real report on fact that the people that were in Roswell, New Mexico during the crash in 1947 were threatened by the military in the months afterwards. Threatened.
Yeah,
Their lives were threatened. Families were
using they were using that anti-espionage. You want to
Yeah.
end up
Yeah.
like the Rosenbergs, the people they hung as spies, just no trial.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like
That's
boom.
terrifying, man.
Yeah,
That's terrifying.
yeah, and you take somebody that probably just wants to be left alone to start with, and then you start saying, yeah, well, if you do this, you're going to end up like them. It's like, okay, man, I'm not going to say
I'm not gonna
nothing.
say anything. If you
No,
have family and kids or whatever, no, you're not gonna say
right.
anything.
That's the kind of threat that when you see that they've done it before, it's got to drive home to the fact that, man, they could, and we're in the desert. I mean,
Yeah.
where is it easier to, you know, and get rid of the evidence, the desert, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
that
shame.
was,
It's a shame.
but
Yeah.
yeah, him coming out and like having the background and the information, the real information that says, yeah, Roswell was real. And that makes me that at that moment, I guess I thought, well, how much of the other stuff that has been the lore of in the UFO community, how much more of that is real? How much more is eventually going to be disclosed that, this, how much more has the government been lying about,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
trying to dissuade people from even thinking about? I
So
just, it
and why?
bothers me that here the government, and it's sort of hypocritical. It's like, how do you know the government's lying? Their lips are moving. But in this case, they come out, they're backing it, they're backing up with the gun camera footage and all the.
Mm.
It's just now it's a sign of the times that and our attention spans that here the government has said extraterrestrial life is real. We're
Right.
being visited by craft. We have evidence of this. And okay, that's cool. And people, it's like, I get it. Okay, that disclosure came. I still had to get up, brush my teeth, and go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think
It doesn't.
until it has an impact on people, you're not really going to get that groundswell of, clamoring for more information. The hardcore ones like you and me and our community will, but just the regular Joe is, well, that's cool, but I still got to make my house payment. I still got
Yep.
to make my car payment. I still
Yep.
got to get the kids to school, get them to, it didn't have the kind of global impact that it would really need to have to get that entrenched. These people have been keeping a lid on this for 80 years. They are not going to take the lid off without a lot of, pressure from without,
Yeah.
outside.
Well, that's again, there's two things that are buried in what you said, two things that come from what you said, two questions. One, well, why are they burying it? And two, is it them that's burying it? Again, I still don't know. I now have a new um, concern, and is it the phenomena that's keeping this actually a secret? I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. And honestly, I think that a lot of people have made a lot of comments to that effect. The idea that the phenomena is the culprit of the secrecy. First of all, this is an intelligence that can, if it wanted to, just reveal itself, and yet it does not. This is an intelligence that claims that, at least some people claim that it wants to help us, and great, and yet it does not reveal itself and help us. It just kind of toys around with us, and it shows itself, but only enough to just like to make us wonder what is that, enough to call to for there to be reasonable doubt.
Right.
I just think that's concerning to me. That's a big
We're
concern
being,
to me.
oh yeah, it's like a cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah, we're being
Really.
gaslit.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of. And it's, okay, they've proven that they can control our nukes. And
Mm.
like Lou said, if they're all, space brother benevolent, why did 3 Mile Island happen? Why did Chernobyl happen? Why did
Great
Fukushima
questions.
happen?
Great questions.
It's like, and I kind of, my point of view has always been, if they were truly malevolent and we were of no consequence, it would be Godzilla versus Bambi, and we're Bambi. If they can harness the power and the technology to get here, like they obviously do, and move like they do, we're, it's not going to be Independence Day. It's not, it's not going to be a ragtag bunch of humans fighting them down. No,
Mm.
they are superior as we are stepping on anthill. That's,
Do you still
maybe
believe
even
that?
more so. I do. I don't think just the science that they are harnessing the powers that they're harnessing the fundamental vacuum energy of the universe. They're
Mm.
literally taking nothing vacuum and creating, trillions of watts of power. Trillions. And it's just, to me, what does it take? What kind of laser beam? So just to use a vernacular, a common vernacular. If you've got tetrawatts, terawatts at your command, what kind of particle beam weapon do you think it would take to level New York or level an entire country?
I got to be honest with you. I feel like that's a failure in imagination, my friend. What if, for example, and this I really didn't want to get into this yet, but I guess we'll touch on it.
Okay.
You're talking about it. We'll touch on it. This is a good. I don't want to lose this moment.
Okay.
So the suggestion that I think there was a couple suggestions that Lou makes about the potential danger for the phenomena. One of them is clearly they don't want all out war. But let's assume that they do. Let's assume there is a danger. They have done something that he calls, not just by, again, I use the word purposefully, conjecture. He's not just making this up or maybe they could kill us because they're not, because I don't know, because we don't understand their behavior, so therefore it's scary. He talks about a behavior that is, even in the wild, it would be considered a reconnaissance effort. If you were to look at
Yeah.
what they're doing with observing our military weapons capabilities, not just ours, but also China's and Russia's, specifically the biggest superpowers in the world. If you look at that, how they are taking biological samples, according to some witnesses, some abductees, they are doing some kind of cloning operation. If you even look at John Mack's book, read some of John Mack's work, you know that there's a potential nefarious aspect that doesn't have to do with laser beams and explosions and the Godzilla versus Bambi situation, but more like the gods and men situation. The idea that there's something else that we have that they need us alive for. Then you have a completely different paradigm to view this potential conflict in. If you combine that with, for example, by the way, Lou worked with Jim Semivan. We know
Mhm.
this. They had Lou and Semivan and DeLong and all them. They've all worked together before. They did part ways for economic reasons. By the way, I was deceived by many, by I don't want to say who, but I was deceived by someone who tried to say that Lou and Tom DeLong and all them were running some kind of money scheme. Come to find out, Tom DeLong was funding the entire thing by himself. It was his money that funded the whole To the Stars Academy. He thought that they could use this media campaign to help influence the world, because in his mind, influencing the consciousness of the public is how you can turn this whole thing around. It's about awareness. And he funded it. He paid. He essentially, when Lou left and lived in his trailer, he gave Lou a salary. And eventually that money ran out. He could not afford to keep paying Lou and other people and other projects. So they had to cut that and economic tie. So Lou did other things, by the way, including work for the Space Force. So when you think about who Lou is connected to, you have to ask yourself, what did these men believe? Well, we've heard about Tom DeLong's belief. He goes as far as to say angels and demons. We heard about Jim Semivan's belief. DeLong's pretty explicit when he talks about the analogy of angels and demons in terms of an analogy, not a literal and interpretation,
Right.
but the idea that this is not a physical carnal, this is not a physical blood and tissue kind of war. This is more not a kinetic one. This is something that's more energetic or consciousness involved or the soul. And I've been reading Willie Strieber's Them book, by the way, which was recommended by Jim Semivan recently. On his interview with Engaging the Phenomena, he said that a great assessment of the phenomena is by Whitley Strieber's Them. And I don't know if you've read that book yet, but it
Yes.
talks about the harvesting of souls, some kind of a connection with them wanting the souls that human beings have. There's a lot more to it than that, but essentially it's got to do with what we consider soul or consciousness, the thing that survives after death. That's what they're interested in. If you put that into perspective, and again, this is something that was suggested by Jim Semivan, you have to ask yourself, why would they not blow us all up? They can't. They need us
We're,
for something.
it's like, why would a farmer blow up his beef cattle?
Exactly. And that's actually my position. I've had that position before I even heard about these men. I thought something just doesn't seem right. I read about John Mack, of course, and the old timers, but some of the new people I have never heard some of these theories elucidated as much as they have been with the level of like current credentialed alive individuals. To me, that was a big, huge deal to me to hear them confirm and, of course, clarify more about what the potential for this is. Not what it is, but what the potential for this is. Because I don't know. I don't know either. I'm just not inclined to believe anything other than I think they need us for something. I think we are a resource. I don't think that we're this love, light, and happiness relationship with these things. I think it's
No,
far more
I don't
nefarious
either.
and sinister. Yeah.
I don't want to be. I'm not totally on the fear monger side, but I don't think you can have. I don't think it's a one-sided game. I do believe that there are agencies that don't mean us any good.
Human agents.
Like I said, yeah, no, just call them off-worlders. Let's
Okay. Okay.
not couching like off-worlders who, like you said, we're a resource.
Mm.
But nature and the universe seem to like balance. So if there's the the ones that are trying to use us for their own, there might be, the possibility also has to exist that there's a more benevolent agency as well. Like
I
there
think
might
that's I
there
think that's
might
possible.
be there's like a proxy war between these two, which you kind of reads like angels and demons. I can see where some of these people come up with that, because it does seem like there's a force for light, for good, and of the ones you can't, the ones who kidnap, take chunks of us, and that's criminal activity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I come to your house, grab one of your kids, take them into the van, take a plug of meat out of them, even if I turn them loose, I should go to prison for that.
Yeah.
After
See
you beat the hell out of them. And these guys, these aliens are doing this with impunity. And it's not like, they're not asking, would you mind? They're just like, hey, like we would take a rat out of a cage.
I think it's a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more interesting than that. I've actually recently used a crude, excuse me for this analogy. Someone had posted a picture, an image, a meme, and it was like a UFO, and what did it say? It said, aliens are probably locking their doors as they fly by Earth because we're such a chaotic race.
Right.
I said, yeah. And I responded did you see my comment? Did you see my comment? Oh no, that means it's all over the internet. So my comment was, yeah, right after they kidnap your mom and get her pregnant. And so it's like,
exactly.
It's like, it's not, it's like far more sinister, in my opinion, than just like, oh, they love you and they want to, they're like kidnapping women, getting them pregnant, and then dropping them off with no memory, or just enough that like they know something bad happened to them, which is literally how assault happens. Like, I know something happened to me. I know it's with this person, but I know something bad happened, but I don't remember all the details. That happens to a lot of women, but also to men. And so, and sometimes even children. There's a story that was, this happened also. Again, there's a lot of things. Now, my issue with the UFO community, and I love you guys, even the haters, you all give me the energy to do what I do. Is that they'll use, some people within the community will say, "Oh, this is frustrating. Oh, that's because it's humans doing that. They have the technology, they have the UFO technology. They're able to go over your house. They're able to abduct you. They're able to make you think that you were abducted by aliens, and they're doing it because they want you to think that the aliens are bad." If that isn't a successful psyop by the intelligence, my goodness, what is? They have convinced a portion of the population, hey, it's not us. It's actually your human military that's doing it. We're not doing that stuff. The only time it happens is when we tell you we love you. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
Isn't that convenient? So what about 1,000 years ago? What about 2,000 years ago? What about 6,000 years ago? What about 10,000? When the Anunnaki were talking about these gods that came down and were interacting with them, and were literally being served as gods, using human beings as labor and so forth. What about that? Was it the government 10,000 years ago? What are they doing? What have they been like? Please, like, use a little bit of deduction. Like, okay, if this, then that. If this, use some logic here. It just doesn't make sense. Not to the extent that it is happening and has been happening for, if you believe the religious texts of the old, thousands of years, millennia. So yeah, I don't know. I don't.
Jacob's ladder, Ezekiel.
Ezekiel's wheel.
Yeah, many years ago, I used to be active in church, and I got to do the second reading. And it just happened to be the Ezekiel and the fire in the sky. And without even thinking, when I finished, it's like, y'all, that was a UFO sighting.
I mean,
that was the last time I was asked to read, because I just like, as I'm reading it, it's dawning on me. It's like, hey, y'all, that's in the Bible. That's a UFO sighting.
Has anybody thought about the fact that he's literally describing a UFO? Of course not, because That would be another one of those dogmatic, religious dogma,
Right.
religious fervor. It prevents people from seeing anything beyond what they're told they should believe. By the way, the Bible does not refute any other gods, right? There's a
Right.
quote in there, I guess, where they mention like whether there be other gods or not, it's irrelevant because they serve a God. They serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That suggests that there are potentially other gods. By the way, there's the sons of God. What is that? There are these other beings that saw the daughters of man and they had children to them, and God didn't like that. By the way, there was a quote that I'll never forget because I study the whole religious aspect of it to get some perspective about ancient, contact. There's an example in Job where where the devil goes to ask God, Satan goes to ask God for permission to mess with Job, and the sons of God are are in the presence of them both. So who are these sons of God, and what are they, and what can they do? In the book of Enoch, the Watchers, these beings with great power who've given humanity different knowledge and of war and weapons and other things, music. These Watchers, they were the gods. They were the ones from the sky that were giving these kinds of teachings to humankind. They've been giving us stuff for thousands of years. What makes this era any different, aside from the fact that there's technology now versus other things? Not spears and shields, but now there's AI and there's flight and there's weapons of mass destruction and so forth. What if they've given us this too? And that's actually part of the suggestion by some people within history, the ufology, the history of ufology, that some of these intelligences have influenced the direction of humanity. Now, there's a suggestion that's been put out there that by Peter Levenda, who again wrote the book for the book series God's Men in War by Tom DeLonge with Tom DeLonge. And the first book is called Gods, and it's about essentially the gods, the power of the gods and so forth. But in Peter Levenda's work, there is a very clear undertone of influence by another intelligence on humanity, that they're governing the entire direction of human culture and civilization. He claims he gives this analogy in the latest interview he did. I can't remember who it was with at the moment, but look up Peter Levenda. He did a recent interview within the last month, I believe, where he mentions an analogy like why don't we know about the phenomena? Why doesn't the phenomena come forward? Why doesn't the government tell us about this? He gave this analogy, and I'm going to butcher it, of someone being in your home, a robber, an invader, and they're like, "Hey, I'm in your house and I'm watching you. And if you call the police, I'm going to get you." He uses that analogy to as analogous to the phenomena in the military and the government. What? Why would you say that? Because it's pretty clear that, at least in his view, it seems, this is my perspective, watch it yourself, don't believe me, that the phenomena is essentially holding that information hostage. You better not say anything. You better not say anything, or else you're all
that might be why that group that's been keeping the lid on things,
they may be the
has
heroes
been
of the
so
story.
adamant about keeping. One of the things that came out in the book is like,
Wait, hold on. Sorry. I don't mean that they may literally be the heroes. I jest, but sorry.
Right.
I don't want people to be like, "Hey, Marquis said the military is a hero." Don't do that. Sorry.
No, I got it. One of the things that got me about it was, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry, man. I interrupted you.
No, there was. It'll come back. I mean, it's like a merry-go-round in here.
It's mine too.
But yeah, it's the age. Yeah, it's like, oh, tree.
I don't have an excuse. It happens all the time. Well, I was talking about the idea that the phenomena is holding the disclosure hostage, and
right, the whole idea that maybe that core of people that are keeping the lid open or keeping the lid down are doing so because they know how they're privy to some information we don't have, and that secret has to be kept. So,
well, let me ask you this: Lue Elizondo, he mentioned running into someone in the halls of the Pentagon, I believe, I
Right.
believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Where he said he was a religious guy, and he said, "Lou, we know what these things are already. Um, they're
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 demons. Right.
they're demons." Now, listen, this is extremely important. There are a couple of points to keep in mind. This was a high level intelligence officer, I believe, somebody with credentials, somebody that's intelligent, somebody not a fool, not a nut, a religious nut. This was a person that obviously Lou held in high regard before this incident, of course. And he said, "We know what they are." What information does he have that he's
Right.
not telling Lou that makes him believe that they're demons? Now, I don't. Again, I'm with you. By the way, I think that there are more than one thing happening, and I don't think it's just all evil and all good or whatever, one or the other. I'm with you on that. I think that there is potentially a conflict between intelligences potentially, and we're in the middle of it. And my reasons are going to be stated throughout. But you know, if he has this person that Lou talked to has information that Lou does not have, then Lou is that sucks. Lou needs to know because he's
Right.
doing this off the belief that the best thing to do is to tell the people. What if the best thing is? What if it's not to tell? I mean, I still want to know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Exactly.
what if it's not? Like, what if we go through this whole thing, and all of a sudden the phenomena literally shows up in the skies in Armageddon, is like that day. I mean,
We
that sounds
told you to
ridiculous.
keep your mouth shut. Yeah.
We
Exactly.
told you, and or many other potentially terrible things could happen. We could now that they gave us the freedom to feel like we had our own world, but it's not our world. There was a the day the earth stood still. Whenever that woman, the Secretary of Defense, whatever, she spoke to Cloud 2, the alien. She said something like, "You're on our planet." He looks at her in this ominous way and says, "Your planet?" She said, "Yes, this is our planet." And he says, "No, it is not. I don't think this is our planet. We don't have I mean, we may seem to have dominion, but clearly there's an alpha predator here and it's not us." So
Yep.
again, what if there's something else that is influencing decision makers? This has been said by others, by the way. Influencing decision makers. Keep this a secret or else. I mean,
I had a thought once, and maybe this is going a little far afield, but okay, we see how these craft behave. And if there was a human occupant inside that, they'd be jello.
they'd be pudding or
Okay.
whatever. Yeah.
So let's say it's like an AI that maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's not the pilot, there's no pilot in there. The craft itself is an autonomous AI. What if the purpose that we are this resource because carbon-based human life is like a larval stage, that we are like an infant stage toward becoming AI, that we will evolve into AI.
So
And
there's
that's why we're being kept. It's like we're
where
basically
uses the
offspring.
Trinity. Yeah.
Yeah, we're a larval stage of what's to come. It's
So
we could
there's
evolve, but what I guess streamlined way of saying it is, it almost seems like it would be a natural course of evolution for us to evolve away from these rickety body meat suits into more of a
so
biomechanical cyborg, into pure AI.
I think we already are. I want to address two things though. Lou talks about in the book. This is I've never what that's not true. Bob Lazar talked about the craft and how it's able to perform at the speeds that it is, defying relativity, right? Creating this space time distortion, this gravity manipulation, um, that it seems to create its own gravitational field, or that it contains it in a bubble, right? There's a bubble effect that it's able to not propel itself forward like we see, but literally travel through space and time. Literally travel through space and time. Lue Elizondo says that there was a theory that kind of sums up all the capabilities. Transmedium travel. Why can it travel
Right.
underwater without resistance and without changing its flight pattern, without being able to travel at 10,000 miles per hour plus instantaneously without having to slow down or speed up? It just does it instantly.
The
All those things,
observables. Yeah.
observables, the 5 observables, instantaneous acceleration, transmedium travel, anti-gravity, which is how they can create lift,
Difficulty to observe.
low observability,
Yeah.
and
Low
low observability, and I can never remember the fifth one. I don't know why. It's just the fifth one. I don't know what the fifth. There's 6, but the fifth one I can't remember at the moment. Anyway, I'll think of it. So low observability, anti gravity, instantaneous acceleration, transmedium travel, and crap. I don't know. I don't remember the fifth one.
I'll
Chat,
see if
help
I
me.
can find it.
Yeah, I can't think of what the fifth one is. That's so crazy because I know these by heart, and for some reason I literally always forget the fifth one. But either way, there's he gave like a so was it Hal Puthoff? Hal Puthoff, I think it was.
Yes. Hal Puthoff was
Gave like a several
the
hour
presentation.
physics presentation on how these craft might work. I'm not a scientist. I would like for everyone to please read the book. It's called Imminent, by Lue Elizondo. He describes it in the book. By the way, you can learn it for free if you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience. He describes it there for free. So money grab, that would be dumb. He'd be like, oh, you can read it in my book. He does not ever do that. He doesn't.
He
ever
never
do that.
does. He never does.
So,
He does. Like a lot of people I've heard interviewed, it's like, well, read my book, get my book, and
he doesn't do that at all.
Yeah, Lou's like, yeah, got a book out there, but when you listen to that, I remember I saw the Joe Rogan interview before I read the book, and then I'm reading along in the book. It's like that's a direct quote. It's like he was reading from the book. Yeah.
Lue he's the guy's a hero, man. I respect him beyond.
I have come to that very conclusion myself. I'm scanning through that the observables to see if I can find it.
I can't think of. Let me hold on. What are the? Hold on one second. What are the 5 observables?
But it was Hal Puthoff that came up with them and codified them.
One second. We'll get the 5. We'll get the 5th one here in a second. But yeah. So the other thing that we were talking about comments that he made that I thought were, in my opinion, monumental. This is interesting and it's important to me. There are just so many different manifestations of it. It's not just disc-shaped objects or triangles, It's also the cylinders. This is me. It's talking now. The cylinders. And he talks about how they're able to do this, by the way. Okay, here it is. So instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity without signature, low observability, transmedium travel, positive lift, anti-gravity. Got it. 5 observables. Instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, low observability, transmedium travel, and positive lift or anti-gravity. So he talks about the reason for why these craft have lights and what those lights do. And I'm not going to even
form and the function.
Yep, form and function.
It's like the triangular craft, the bubble, how a bubble, would hit the apexes. Yes, and how it might be. That's even how the boomerang craft, like the Phoenix lights. Yep. Why that configuration required those lights? That was the warp bubble array. Yeah. I love the way that came out. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. That was one of those moments. It's like
that was an aha moment for me.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
Whoa. Yeah. So this is important. I mean, I feel like this is a moment where if all the things, by the way, if Lue didn't come out in 2017 and everything didn't happen the way that it did, I do not think we'd be here. No. I do not think we'd be here. The public conversation, the political involvement, the legislation. Are you kidding me? They talk about non-human intelligences in legislation. Are you kidding me? Ross Coulthard did an interview yesterday. Hold on one second while I pull that up real quick. Just give me a second while I pull it. But he did an interview yesterday.
I printed that off too. That legislation. I was really. It's like, holy mackerel! This really does exist. This isn't
Yeah,
something he
yeah.
made up. Guidance to
No,
federal
it's
agencies on
real, man.
unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's like, y'all, it's real.
It's real. He
And
spoke
come
to
October 20th, it's going to be. They have till
in law.
October 20th of this year. It's law. They're going to have. Now, I know that they're going to loophole crap by saying national security, or they're going to figure out how to hide some of the real meat. But I think this is going to allow some more to come out.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen. So okay. That legislation, I think, is more for the ones that are holding the secrets and less for us. I think the biggest deal is that they're like, hey, so someone thought it was important enough to write legislation to say, if you guys are hiding this stuff, we need to see this. This cannot be classified. This cannot be classified in the way that it is. It's being held from any oversight. The government doesn't know, the Pentagon doesn't know, the DoD doesn't know, at least at the actual directive level. Someone knows within these organizations, but not at the level where they're all collaborating on the information, the known information.
Oh
They're not
yeah,
able to make
like the
assessments of it.
legacy program that had all the deepest secrets are in that legacy program that's spread out through the military industrial complex.
That's why I put the video that the new intro, by the way, is me talking about just the history and how now is the time. We are ready for the truth. We're ready for what's really happening. And Lue, I think Lue is a huge part of disclosure. Honestly, I think he's not the only part. He is not.
No.
But man, if it wasn't for Lue, we'd still be grasping.
Credible.
Yeah.
To me,
even David
got the bit. Yeah.
David Grush was a big deal. But something about Lue, there's something about Lue and like you said, his credentials that makes him even more monumental than David Grush. Even though I think what David Grush said was just as huge. But Lue coming out and saying it, I don't think the general public understands the weight of how important that was. It was really important.
Gravitas that this man has.
Gravitas. Yeah.
I mean, this man, he didn't do it by himself. He had, Chris Mellon and he had
Ralph Blumenthal.
He had people helping him push. Yeah, Leslie Keene. He had people helping him push the ball forward. But this is law. I mean,
yeah,
this
is
law.
the NDAA, the National Disclosure. What is it? The National Defense Authorization Act, and
National Defense Authorization Act.
National Defense Authorization, and there's a part in there called the UAP. What is it? What is the name of the? Hold on one second. They called it the UAP Disclosure Act, but it wasn't the UAP. Do you have the name for it? I can't
UAP
think of the
record. The NAR. No, that's the.
No. There was a name that people were. It was more of a common. It was the new vernacular for that people, the common folk, were using for the bill. The UAP Disclosure Act. The UAP Disclosure Act. That was what we were calling it, because honestly, it is something. It literally just says in there, was it 25 plus times, non-human intelligence. And by the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is definitely he's smarter than me. Biologics doesn't mean random samples of something. They are explicit. It means fully intact, humanoid, non-human beings that are the pilots of these craft. By the way, the pilots is what Luke calls it.
This is what I'm looking forward to after. I mean, it's not going to happen exact. October 20th, 2024 is the deadline that these agencies have to submit. But in the law, it says publicly releasable copies of UAP records transferred to the NARA will be made available online in the National Archives catalog.
That's huge, man. Guys,
but the publicly releasable, that's going to be the publicly releasable is going to be the loophole they use. Yeah. It's like, well, you can't release that. That's,
Well, I think
Or
Lou
that's
said,
what they're going to try. This is a good start. I think it's going to end up having to be refined eventually. As the loophole, they're going to have to plug some of the loopholes that are in it. But just, y'all, it's here.
cut it up.
The government does not have a sense of humor. I mean, this is not a prank. This is, honest to God, public record, public law 118-31, sections 1841 to 1843.
There was also that ODNI, the report by the Director of National Intelligence that said that the preliminary assessment on UAP, and it was either in that or the following UAP report that had the 200 plus page document, that literally, guys, listen, you guys want to play games, look it up. It explicitly says that there are unaccounted for pregnancies as a consequence of coming into contact with the craft. They get in your wife's
biological effects.
The biological effects that's a pretty big deal. So to me, it just feels like all of these things happening they're just unequivocal. Something is going on. Okay. All of
I have witnessed, and yeah, sure, there might be other explanations, but I have been a witness to vanishing fetus syndrome.
Oh no!
Through my work, because I was tracing this woman's beta HCG. I can't go into a lot of details because of HIPAA.
Yeah.
But according to her beta HCG levels, and she had a sonogram that showed a fetus. All of a sudden, she comes in one weekend, and guess what? It's gone. Her beta HCG levels are up there that would indicate that she is a pregnant woman, and she was far enough along that it's not like, it's not the kind of miscarriage you would have missed.
No.
So we went from having a viable fetus, beta HCG levels going where they're supposed to go, to here's the beta HCG, but the baby's gone.
No.
I've seen it. I mean, and supporting. So it's.
Well,
I think
there are people
they're
like
doing something.
Well, they're doing the question. They're doing it clandestinely. It's very clandestine how it's happening. There is a woman named Geraldine. Do you know Geraldine? I don't remember if you remember her or not. Geraldine, she actually has. Let me see if I can pull her up. Geraldine Gonzalez. Geraldine, where are you, Geraldine? Either way, she has I have her on Facebook. I just can't find her at the moment. I can't remember how to spell her name. My goodness, Marquise. Anyway, she claims that she has a whole cosmic. She's having children with these non-human intelligences. She's not the only person who's mentioned having children with non-human intelligences. Through the abduction experience, in her mind, it's positive. I'm not going to even put that on her, but to her, it's positive. If that thing is happening to people all over the world, and again, why would the Director of National Intelligence put out that preliminary assessment saying that there are unaccounted for pregnancies? I'm sorry, that's pretty explicit that's happening to people, among other things. Again, there are some explicit admissions that are like dropped in there that if you don't see them, you don't, and even if you read all those, just the mundane document, they'll, this happened at this time, and this is what we called it, and this is how we called it, this, all these acronyms. The reality is they're admitting to something else being here that's interacting with humanity, and it does weird stuff like, again, unaccounted for pregnancies. I think it's pretty clear. So let's move on. I'm sorry, I'm belaboring this point. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of bring up that he talked about was, let's see here. We talked about the legacy programs a couple times, that there are aerospace companies. I think he said why, there are other factors besides what I believe is the whole that they can't tell us because it could cause panic, that they can't tell us because they're being told not to, that the phenomena controls disclosure. that if they tell people that okay, so there was a the preparation for the battlefield, PPD, okay, PPB. Elizondo said that it was displaying characteristics that were akin to what they call preparation for the battlefield. It's already displayed that it has a capability of being, undetectable and traveling at speeds we can't imagine and producing energy within a small space, instantaneously, things that we just can't imagine. Okay, it could wipe us out. We'd have no defense against it. And now it's displaying these characteristics of observing our weapons capabilities, observing our human population, taking samples, learning about us, all kinds of things, influencing entire cultures, the UFO community. It has this what they call preparation for the battlefield. That's what it appears to be. But also, there's this other factor. What if, he says, Elizondo says, that that there are aerospace companies that were given technology exclusively that put them far ahead of the game, that set them essentially as the leaders in tech industry, aerospace, defense, whatever. And they gave these tech industries pieces of alien tech, right? And they got the edge. Now we're supposed to be in a fair. He says this is not me. He says, "Oh, this is supposed to be a fair system and capitalism, and it's supposed to be right and all this." But there are people that have been giving a dramatic edge against all other people. That's not fair. There are
Yeah, if you're Wright Curtis, who's still limping along, there's still a business, and you're Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman got the alien tech.
Right.
Curtis Wright didn't.
I didn't say that.
Well, no, I'm just saying as an example, you've got,
yeah.
because these are kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum as far as aerospace go. If you're Wright Curtis Wright, Curtis Wright, are you going to be complacent about, well, yeah, you just gave it to them, better luck for us next time? No, we're a litigious society. Curtis Wright's going to go after the government and go after whoever gave them that leg up, that unfair advantage. That's the same as going to insider trading.
100%. Only much more monumental in terms of impact and of course wealth, the generation of wealth. They run. They're so powerful that you can't. They're more powerful than countries. So I mean, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? The other thing was
the thing that they said. It's like the president and these people come and go. These office holders come and go.
Yeah,
but the bureaucracy is temporary tenants of the position. President so-and-so is going to have his 8 years and go on. But the bureaucracy, those legacy programs, those cliques that are inside the Pentagon, how many administrations? I mean, Lue Elizondo was part of that group for 20 years. There's people that's been there for 50 years. So they stay, and it's almost like the government moves around them. It's like they are a tree standing in the forest watching the people just zip by. Time moves differently for them.
Oh, much differently. Speaking of which, the craft, whenever they're traveling, they say they may be, to us, they're moving really fast, but to them, they're not actually moving fast at all. They're traveling again, literally through space-time. So if that
was another way of keeping special relativity intact. No, they're not going faster than the speed of light, but it's a perception.
Right. It's just the manipulation of space-time, literally.
Yeah.
There is a, and I don't want to get, because I'm going to forget this here. Because we're talking about like these people that are keeping this secret. This is one of the potentials for it. This is a part of why the secrecy, right? There's an economic backlash. There are legal implications. There are obviously people that have committed heinous crimes to keep the secrecy. So there's a lot of reasons to keep it, but I don't think that. I think that it would not be a very. I want to be respectful. Like, I can't imagine that was the original purpose. I think that that evolved, that purpose evolved. Initially it was like, holy crap, we've got another being here. This is not okay. And then immediately after, it was like, you threaten everybody's life. I wonder why, right? But I think that happened subsequent, like after the whole Roswell and so forth. I think afterwards they were like, yeah, we got to keep this under wraps for other reasons. And then eventually, after giving the tech to potentially Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Monsanto.
Monsanto. Yeah, that was a surprise. It was
What the
like,
heck?
oh yeah, okay. That
Guys, if you
makes
don't know, they're one of the evilest people in the world. They're freaking evil, dude.
Monsatan,
They
yeah.
are freaking evil. If you guys haven't seen, there's a documentary I watched. What is it called? I think it's called Corporation, where they talk about Monsanto and the evil. Dude, they are evil. They are evil. Like they did this thing where they were planting suicide crops. They called them. Like, and they would blow, the wind would blow and then go into farmers' land, and then they would own that land because of some legal loophole that now
Right.
that the property now belonged to them because there's suicide. Meaning suicide, by the way, the suicide gene is this crop would have one lifespan and it would die. It would never be able to produce again. Why would you do that? Why would you produce a crop that cannot reproduce? Because they want to control the means of growing crops, which is
Yeah,
you
there's a
want to talk about.
loophole. There's a loophole in it that if their product is growing on the land, apparently they can
Yeah.
confiscate that land
Yeah, I
for
don't know
through
why.
eminent domain to protect their patent, which that is
Yeah.
evil.
Yeah. And there's a lot more things they've done that are terrible. And other companies like but again, specifically with Monsanto, Lou says that they were given the potentially biological samples of the beings. I mean, he suggested pretty explicitly that Monsanto was given biological samples. What?
Without so much as saying they were given, it's like, why else would a biological company be part of this cadre if they
That's
weren't
crazy.
getting the just one, to study the effects, probably to weaponize the effects, the biological effects these craft have, and to one of the things to think about, War of the Worlds might have been turn of the century, but there's something it mentioned that in our sci-fi movies we tend to skate over. If there are physical beings, and apparently there are physical beings in these craft,
Right.
Just think of what we consider normal oral flora, just the bacteria and the stuff that cohabitate in our bodies is completely different than what is on theirs. We don't have immunity to them any more than they would have to us. It's like when the Spaniards first came to America, they called it the black sloth because things the Europeans were immune to, the Native Americans were not. And it was just killing entire, it's leaving a path of death behind them. That could happen. So maybe Monsanto's in on it to mitigate that or to weaponize it.
Or to weaponize, one or the other. Two things. This is I cannot forget this. There was also some suggestion, he had a conversation and I've watched so many things. Please forgive me. I don't remember where he said this. I found it interesting, but now I find it even more interesting. He said about, civilizations leaving something behind. The pyramids were only so many years old, and other things are so many years old. But what would be, he kind of suggested, like, if you were an advanced civilization, what kind of thing would you leave behind to show that, hey, I was here, writing on the wall kind of thing. And he mentioned human DNA. Now, if you remember, okay, completely unrelated people, these people are not connected as far as I know. John Ramirez claims that he was at an unofficial CIA briefing that he had to get permission to go to. He gave explicit, hey, I'm going to go do this thing at this place, whatever, where they briefed intelligence people within the IC, the intelligence community, on the idea that these things share our DNA, that something within our DNA is similar to theirs. Now let's continue with this. There's also a suggestion that these things may be biological robots. They might not be like we are, where individual souls that have, desires and all that. They may be something more like automatons, like biological organisms that have used native organisms mixed with other things to create a new organism, a different one similar enough to interact with us, but not too dissimilar that we don't recognize it or that we can't relate to it in
Chimerism.
chimerism. A chimera is a mix between different species, right? And you know better than I. I only know the lore, but it's interesting to hear these suggestions being echoed by Elizondo. Now, Elizondo does not echo half of what I said. Half of what I said I've gotten from other people. John Ramirez, them sharing our DNA. That microbiologist who posted on Reddit, the alleged microbiologist that Gary Nolan said, "Hey, we need to look into this." Gary Nolan, Stanford, professor of immunology, not to be ignored, says we need to look into this. Guys, gals, demigods, everything in between. That's a pretty big deal. The idea that there may be an intelligence that isn't from this reality that is creating organisms using our DNA to interact with us, but for what?
Well,
These are
look at
not
the
things I made up
record.
with my.
In the record, I would say the genetic record inside our DNA is what they call it, junk DNA.
Right,
It's regions of DNA that don't seem to code for any functional protein.
right, right.
Nature doesn't. Nature doesn't waste. I mean, nature is pretty much Occam's razor. If it's
Right.
not necessary, you ain't got it. I mean, look at look at how we as humans, now that we're not running around barefoot, our little toes are becoming vestigial. Nature tends to get rid of things that aren't useful. The appendix, the little toe, things like that. So we've got inside our genes, we've got these regions of introns and just whole regions that don't seem to do anything. They did something, or they're there for a reason, or we wouldn't have them.
Yeah, do you remember we talked earlier about the potential of us being like, a farm. The planet may be a farm or a zoo. Some people like to say zoo and makes them feel more comfortable, but either way, it's not good.
No.
We don't really have freedom like we think we do. The idea that there's a chicken, the farmer, right? The physics or the mathematician. I don't know why it's a mathematical or physics analogy, but the every day the farmer comes and he gives his chicken food, and in their reality, every day at the same time, the farmer comes. They know they're going to get food, but one day the farmer comes and he's ready to chop them up because they're nice and fat and juicy and plump and ready for the culling. And to the chickens, they have no clue that today is not the day. Today is the sun doesn't shine for them. Today the sun doesn't set for them. Today is the day that everything goes black, and they go on the chopping block. And we may be, um, not to, again. I don't like that analogy with the phenomena per se, but in essence, it's the idea that reality may not be what we think it is. That the nature of reality may be something so bizarre we can't even imagine. How can they? And this is another aspect of disclosure. How can they disclose something that is so far beyond what we can even comprehend that the average person would not only not understand, but maybe even get mad at the people telling? I mean, think about
Yeah.
Galileo. Think about
Well, yeah.
a Newton.
Copernicus was the one who kind of figured out, I guess, it was one of those things like Leibniz and Newton coming up with the same, parallel evolution, parallel development. Anyway, two people coming up with the same idea at the same time, different, completely separate of each other. Copernicus was the one that came up with the heliocentric model.
Right. I did not know that.
And but he was also a member. I think he was a bishop or at least anyhow, he was part of the Catholic Church, and he had to back off of that because it would have been considered heresy, because it was a Earth, for years and centuries, the Earth was the center of the universe because God said so. And then between Galileo and Copernicus, it's like, well, no, we're just one thing in a sea of others, and we're circling the sun. That was heretical. You could lose your life for that, and that fundamental truth that we see today, at one time would have cost you your life to come out and say, "Hey, yeah."
And people
It's
today
amazing.
are pretty hostile. People are hostile towards the truth. I mean, look at Elizondo in the backlash he's been experiencing since he's come out. I mean, Grush, and then anyone who supports these people, they're receiving a lot of backlash. There were some ufologists who quit, especially on Twitter, because they were being harassed and doxxed and attacked by people who didn't. There was someone who mentioned we're approaching the first break, which is good because I gotta get some more caffeine in me before I lose my train of thought more often than I should. But there was this whole thing like the threat narrative. Now listen, I get extremely frustrated with this term because someone said something to the effect of when people use the term, generally, not everyone, when people generally use the term threat narrative, they're using it almost as an offensive term, not to describe something, but to smear it. If Elizondo says, hey, this is a term that exists in the dictionary, and then he describes that term and the characteristics thereof, is he pushing a narrative, or is he describing something through observation? I think that in his case, he's describing something. He's delivering an explanation and a description based off of an observation versus pushing a narrative. The problem is that the explanation people don't like. They don't want the truth. They want a narrative. And because the narrative, which by the way is a byproduct of the truth of the observable descriptions Lou's giving, the narrative derived from that isn't what people want to hear. They want to hear love light. They want to hear Dr. Greer tell them that everything's going to be all right before he tells them a bedtime story about the orbs that flew over his house that he didn't pay for. Like, they don't want to know.
I think we're both in the same boat with that particular person. Yeah.
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 They don't want to know that there is a darker side that we're engaging with too. There is good, I believe, out there, but it's not breaking into your bedroom and getting your mom pregnant or you, right? It's not doing that. It's doing something very different, I think. And I think that people are, because Elizondo isn't aligning with their narrative, this is a fact. They are rejecting the truth because it doesn't fit their belief in what the phenomena represents to them, like a religion. There is a UFO religion in the UFO community. It's a religion.
Yes.
Now, I am okay with saying, hey, descriptively, this is not good to put, like, this is a threat narrative, if it's true, but I haven't heard one yet. I've only heard people telling the truth based off their observations. And I agree with them if they are true.
And I would say with Lue Elizondo, with his background, of course, he is going to describe this in terms.
You want him to.
To him.
You want him to.
That's his job. Yes. It's like Richard Dolan said. That's what we pay these people for.
You watched it. Thank you. I got that from Dolan, by the
way. Yeah, I watched that too at your suggestion. And it's like, yeah, of course he's seeing it that way. And when you look at it, I mean, they're flying in between they're toying with our
14
military.
feet from a fighter jet? Are you kidding me? 14 feet from the cockpit? Are you kidding me? Can you imagine?
Just because you can. Yeah.
That's just because you can. That's not a friendly gesture.
No.
A friendly gesture may be landing at a school in South Africa and saying, hey, kids, watch out for technology. It's not flying with your fighter jets during a military operation, letting you know mine's bigger than yours. That's not a friendly.
Bingo.
It's just not. It just doesn't seem like that's what you would do. So,
well, I don't know. That point that I had that like jumped out, I thought, well, maybe the reason that they're wanting to suppress is we're not ready to We don't want them to show their hand yet because we aren't in a position where we can do anything about it. And maybe the whole idea of keeping things tamped down is to give us time to get to a point where it could at least be a challenge.
Yeah, the analogy that I'll give is this is a crude analogy, but I use it in jest. The government is like a cuck, you know, and and the UFO phenomena is like a big black guy named Debo who just got out of prison, and he just moved into the cuck's house, and he's all over his wife. He's hugging all over. He's got the kids liking him. The kids love him, except for that one kid. That little brat. He's like, I know something's not right about this guy. Something doesn't seem right. He just came in here. He took my mom. He's doing movie nights with the other, but he's not doing it with me. As a matter of fact, he's mean to me. And Dad's over here in the corner, sad, can't do anything about it, just taking it like a champ. And every time he tries to step up, that big black guy named Debo says, "Don't forget, mine's bigger than yours." And I think that's what the UFO phenomena represents. It's like this. It's just like there's nothing that the government can do. There's nothing what are they going to do against this giant power, literally all powerful, at least in our reality, phenomenon that we have no power over. It has all power over us and has had it for thousands of years, millennia. They've been ahead of us.
And they've got the Air Force living in denial. I mean, the Air Force to this day is still, according to, in the book, it's like, no, there's nothing out there. It's the Navy that's stepping up and saying, this is what's happening. The Air Force is like, no. Well, publicly, the Air Force is saying no, but I mean, the fact that they're hiding what their concerns are.
Yeah, real quick, when a few years ago, there was a claim that Air Force pilots were reporting to the UAP task or to Aero, and someone higher up told them stop doing that. No more reporting. This was in the New York Times article. I think Leslie Kane actually reported on this. I believe she reported on this. Fact check me. I think it was Leslie Kane. These pilots were saying that they couldn't go to the Aero anymore because they were told by higher ups that if they did, there would be consequences. So they were literally stopping them from talking to Aero, who was supposed to be collecting information. By the way, what Aero was doing, according to these organizations, was going in, asking, you guys got any UFOs? Okay, see ya, and believing the first word. They're not investigating. Sean Kirkpatrick was not investigating. He was literally, imagine you're like, hey, listen, that person has a gun. And you go, okay, I'll find out for you. And the police go and knock on the door. Hey, you got a gun? And he's like, no. And they're like, okay, thanks. And they go back and say, this guy doesn't have a gun. This guy's crazy. These people are crazy saying that this guy's got a gun. I know he doesn't. Listen, we did an investigation. There's clearly no Did you go into his house? No, of course not. That's the man's property. Why would I go into his house? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what Aero did. Literally, Aero did this. So I'm sorry I'm so hyped, guys. We're gonna go on our
you look at the Condon report. That was he knew before that there was a rigged game. It was going to be anti-UFO. The conclusion was already written before anything was done. And then they keep trotting out Brookings because the Brookings thing is, oh my God, the cat's living with dog, the thing of the Bill Murray. And they've been trotting that. Maybe that might have been true back in the 40s and 50s, but that hasn't been true for 40 years. Since I've been a kid, that hasn't been true. No. That Brookings thing is old news. It's like one of Lue's secrets that's been kept so long that it's spoiled. Yeah, it's rotting in the refrigerator.
That was a great analogy you gave too. So we're going to go on the first break. We're only doing one break today because there's just so much to cover. But if you're cool with staying for the second half, that'd be great. If not, I can pontificate to myself. So you got another hour or so?
Oh God, yeah. I'll hear as long as you want me.
Awesome, my friend. All right, we're going to go on our first break, everyone. We'll be right back talking about Lue's book, Imminent. If you're listening to us on Helix Rock Radio, rock out, y'all. If you're on Spotify or on the Facebook page, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, follow me, and always check out the show here on Helix Rock Radio at rockradio.live or in the App Store on iPhone and in the Google Play Store on Google Play or Android devices. We'll be right back, y'all. Hang tight.
In the lab of wonders where the cosmos collide, equations unravel and the secrets reside. Dr. Force, the master, breaking the mold, unfolding the codes, letting truths be told. Navigating the unseen, drifting through space, contemplating the infinite, time's woven lace. Exploring the unknown, wherever seeds are sown, with Dr. Door as our guide through worlds overgrown. Bending reality, dancing through the fray. In the dimensions of wonder, we'll find our way. Dancing with black holes, bypassing the strain. Wormholes like dreams, tethered to the vein. Einstein's shadows linger, relativity's dance. In dimensions unknown, we catch a glance. The pulse of the cosmos, a rhythm divine. Each shift, a new paradigm, a step in time. Exploring the unknown, wherever seeds are sown, with Dr. Door as our guide through worlds overgrown. Bending reality, dancing through the fray. In the dimensions of wonder, we'll find our way. The pulse of the cosmos, a rhythm divine. Each shift, a new paradigm, a step in time. Exploring the unknown, wherever seeds are sown, with Dr. Door as our guide through worlds overgrown. Bending reality, dancing through the fray. In the dimensions of wonder, we'll find our way. In the search for the truth we always soar, Dr. Door leads us through the evermore.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Dr. Door, aka Marquise. Everybody knows me, and I know you. And if you don't know me, I've been doing this for quite some time, so this name branding is not new. This is something that I've just brought back from the dead, or rest, maybe sleep, maybe. Eric, you with me, brother?
Yes.
All right, we're back. So everybody, yeah, we are back talking about Lue's book, Imminent. We are on Helix Rock Radio. So if you're rocking out, what's up? I hope you like the new intermission song. But I do have an intro and outro, which is the recording that I did. It was a professionally done recording, so I hope you guys like it. You'll hear it at the beginning of the show and also at the end for now. But I do have an outro that I'm working on. Don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen. Giving you the best quality I possibly can. So anyway, so I think Elizondo is unimpeachable. You think he's unimpeachable now, but you did not come into this that way. You changed your mind, which I think is amazing. I was not expecting. As a matter of fact, I actually advertised this personally to friends as a potential debate, but we turned out to be in agreement about this. So
Well, yeah, I mean, by and large, I mean, there are things that he did in the book that I felt were kind of exploitative, but how much of that was him and how much of that was his editor saying, you know, there comes a point where if you want to get your story out,
right,
you might have, you know, it's like when they do a bill in Congress and they put writers on it. You know, this bill needs to become a law, but, well, I mean, some of the stuff that the UAP legislation was actually hooked to it was writers on other bills. But
so wait, what was the thing what do you think was exploitative? I'm curious about that.
Well, maybe not exploitative. So, well, okay, like I said, the redacted things.
Right.
That's a gimmick to me. I mean, maybe that was his trying to illustrate that, look, the government's been screwing with me right up to publication day. I could take it that way, or it's just add drama to the story by the two. What is it like on a Kindle? It's like 2 pages of redacted.
Right.
And it's like
real
this
quick,
doesn't need to be there.
He did say why he did that.
I missed
He
that.
mentioned, I'm not sure if he. So I don't remember. I've only read the book once, so I'm going to go over it again. And I've only watched the interviews one time. There were so many of them. There's a lot to keep up with here, guys.
Right.
But I remember him saying pretty explicitly that he did that to show you exactly what you said. Like, they will not even let me. Like, I want to tell you. And he left that there on purpose to let you know they're still keeping something from you. And he wants that there to be a push to get that stuff unredacted. He wants to inspire people to do that. So to hit, and again, I appreciate that you're saying this, because as people have these thoughts, I want to dispel that, at least in your mind. His admitted intention was to inspire people to want to push to get that unredacted.
He is drawing attention to this. That's like, I get that.
John Greenwald
said, I went into it. I did say, I did go into this thinking, okay, this, and especially when I started reading it, and it was like rehashing. Okay, I know about he was putting cases that are old news that have been around for, some of them were just like the mother, the grandmother, and the kid, the biological effects. And I thought, as I'm reading it, like, oh, good.
Again,
there was a case, I believe it was in Texas, or Oklahoma or Texas, that this car, it had a kid, his mother and grand, and it's a famous case because of the sicknesses and stuff that happened. And I thought, well, this is just him rehashing old news.
So before why do you think he would put that in his book, old news in his book?
Because he was laying the groundwork. I mean, he was laying the groundwork, because he's going to mention later. Spoiler alert. He's going to mention later the biological effects that these things have.
And by the way, the biological effects of them that are, because here's one thing I want to interject just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
There has been another frustrating perspective that they're saying that these biological effects are done by people, right? That Lue is. Did you see? I don't want to. I'm afraid to say what I saw. I'm not going to give any hints to where I saw this, because I'm not throwing shade at anybody else who puts in sweat just like I do with this topic, especially people that put in more sweat than me. I've written no books. I have no papers. The people that they do. There's been this, in my opinion. I think it is a perspective based on a feeling about the phenomena, not against Lue, but about the phenomena. Someone suggested that they inferred that Lue inferred that it wasn't the aliens, it was like the military that was producing all the negative and the biological effects and so forth. That he put those things in there literally as like a seed to say, oh, look, the military's doing it. And when I heard this, I literally almost fell out of my chair. Now, what? Are you kidding? Why?
Maybe I missed it, but I sure didn't see anything like that when I read it. He's clearly
talking about the phenomena.
Onus on the phenomena, yes.
Which
the
they're saying they're conflating,
especially the blue spheres. They say the blue. What was that?
They're dangerous. The Colaris.
Yeah, that little Colaris. Yeah.
Yep.
That whole town being chased, and documented cases of people being harmed by
the Brazilian Air Force got involved in that. And they were like, they took pictures and video and all that stuff of all the effects and all the things that happened to people. That was a terrifying event. And you know what they said? God, this really pissed me off. I respect the person that said it, but not the opinion. This was stupid. They said, oh, Lue put it in there because he was trying to let us know the military did it. That's suggested that the U.S. military made the Brazilian military shut down the operation because it was their tech. Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Where did you get that from?
I think he brought that narrative. He brought that part of the story up ever since Richard Dolan said narrative is a a pejorative way of.
It's
I
of
wasn't
saying,
using. Honest to God, y'all, I wasn't using it that way. It
no, I
wasn't
know.
until
That's
he
why I
mentioned.
said some people.
Yeah.
That's why I said some people.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't. I didn't mean the narrative in the pejorative sense, but I think the way he put that in there, it wasn't so much as to try and point to any military. He was using that man's status in the military as a certification of how good a witness he was, how unimpeachable a witness the
And
general was.
And why mention that? Because he wants you to know that this is a potential for the phenomenon
Right.
too. Right? Not
Now,
like
whether, and he says it may not be intentional, it may be a byproduct of
right.
the object, the orb, the technology itself. It's like if you how do you say if you stand behind a
the
jet when it
I
goes
use
into
this all
afterburn?
the
Yeah,
time. I use
yeah,
that example because of him all the time. Where you're the jets aren't by their nature dangerous to humans, but if you're behind the engine, you're gonna get. There was the show the Lost TV series. It's called Lost. In the very first episode, there's a man that's sucked through the jet engine of a crashed plane that's still going off. Now the plane didn't think I'm going to kill that man, but it did, and because of him being in a dangerous zone. The idea that actually that's exactly what I got, that as a byproduct of the technology and that distortion of space time and the bubble, and all those things. There's like this radiation that it emits at a certain distance, and there are different effects based off the distance you are from the craft that you
right.
have biological. So
Yeah, because
that's
he
all in the
mentions
book.
the Rendlesham Forest incident and
Right,
how
right.
Jim
Which he's
Henderson,
still
those
getting.
guys had different effects depending on.
Well, he's receiving he's receiving a military money from the government or military, whatever, because of the health effects he's experienced with that, which I honestly I didn't know. That's a failure on my just memory. Those are the first things I heard about when I was much younger and watching documentaries like, oh, Rendlesham Forest, that's a big incident, that's a big deal. I haven't gotten into that later in my life because I've heard it 1,000 times. Clearly not enough recently because I didn't even recognize the names of the people involved. But he's still receiving money because of biological effects from the craft, guys.
Yeah, that was one of the good things about the way the legislation came up is some of these
Yeah.
people who before were just, well, suck it up. It's like
Yeah.
now they're getting benefits. They're getting the medicine they need and the support they need because of this new kind of protecting the whistleblower. This legislation is opening things up.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen in my lifetime, but you and your kids are going to live to see the day that half of what's being hidden now is out there.
Possibly. I think so. I think that the world is changing. I think information is too available and everything's out in the open.
Well, look how you get this little trickle here, you get this little leak here. Well, once these like under the ones that are giving their testimony under classified, in closed hearings, but once that information comes out, that's the tip of the spear. Then it's eventually going to become common knowledge. It's finally disclosed to the small group of people. Something's going to leak, and it evolves. It takes on a life of its own. Pretty soon, the truth is going to be out there. Oh, I didn't mean to. I did. Oh God, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to sound like Mulder. But eventually, once the stuff starts, I guess what I'm saying is once this stuff starts being discussed, even if it's being discussed, not clandestinely, but under the auspices of classification,
right?
Once it's out there, it's going to take on a life of its own, and it's going to be disseminated. It might take a while, but it will get out there. And the more, we're going to see things probably in the next 10 years that are going to make the gimbal footage look like a Disney production. There's still Gordon Cooper's film. The late Gordon Cooper was talking about
with the landing craft, with
the craft landed. They boxed up the film, sent it, and it disappeared. Lue has probably, with all the stuff Lue's seen, he's probably seen that film.
Well, hold on. Allegedly, remember? Oh man. Allegedly, there's that video of a craft landing. I think Disney got involved in that. By the way, I think it was Disney. This is such a vague memory.
I've seen that Disney thing about the UFO.
Where it landed on a military base, and allegedly there's more footage to that, in that was a recreation of the original footage. But the original footage was asked to be put out there by the military, but then they were like, never mind, we changed our mind, and they clipped it and whatever. But there was allegedly full recording of a being coming out of the craft that landed on the military base, and it looked like they said the allegation. This is a complete allegation. This is not anything that's backed up by any evidence, any real corroborating, But allegedly that they walked out. They looked like kind of like Egyptian. They had kind of the Egyptian, clothing and stuff like that. And then they got back on the craft and they took off. They had communicated with one of the generals or whatever, and then they got back on the craft and took off. That's allegedly out there. That film is somewhere out there, allegedly. Now, I don't put any weight behind that, but if it is true, that would be the kind of information that says undeniably there's somebody else here. There's so like this is what I wanted to talk about real quick. Do you know what would not convince me that there's non-human intelligences? Craft traveling at speeds we don't understand. Doesn't convince me. UFOs flying in the sky does not convince me. Lights that are doing weird things, splitting off into multiple, that does not convince me. Now, it's compelling. It's like, whoa, what the heck is that? But it does not convince me that a man like Elizondo thinks that they represent a non-human intelligence. That does not convince me that a man like Christopher Mellon is convinced that represents a non-human intelligence. It does not convince me that a man like the inspector general of the that Halpudov and that that all these Jim Semi, it does not convince me that that's the thing that made these men and women believe that this is a non-human intelligence from a perspective of an intelligence officer. More importantly, David Grush talking about interdimensional beings. I don't think for 1 second that seeing them do weird things is what makes them think that it's a non-human intelligence. It does suggest all the things the UFO community says about, oh, it could be us. Now, if you're just seeing the craft, of course you could say maybe China's got a breakthrough. I mean, come on, they have no regulations when it comes to the advancements of their technology and so forth. They don't have like civil rights like we do, and don't do this, no, because it's not good for the economy, because it's not good for people. They don't care about that stuff. They'll experiment on people, experiment on anything.
Oh yeah,
do whatever they want to do. Right? Accelerate
they took
AI
CRISPR technology, and because we are bogged down with CRISPR, we can't.
Oh,
it's we can't
we have
experiment on humans.
Yeah,
they sure can.
Do it. They did it.
I mean, they took our technology and ran with it. Yeah.
AI. The biggest fear from China right now is their artificial intelligence is far more. They're using it far more than what we are because of regulations. Now, listen to this. I do not think for 1 second that they wouldn't think, okay, crap, China or Russia's got this tech because they've seen some strange things in the sky. No, I think they've seen something far more convincing. And they say they've seen things that are far more explicit and convincing and clear in 4K. As Elizondo recently said, there's 4K footage of something. They've seen something that is undeniable. Gary Nolan, 100% guaranteed. Carl Nell, without a doubt, we're not alone. Guys, you think that lights in the sky convinced them of this? No.
They've seen firsthand the non-terrestrial biological entity. They had to.
They had to because a craft is not going to do it. It's not enough. Now you're taking a leap of faith to say it's aliens or non-human intelligences or whatever, right. Interdimensional beings. When you got David Grush testifying in front of Congress saying that there's like a shadow cast, like a figure casting a shadow, these may be projecting something in our reality. Stop. This is something they've seen something far more convincing than lights in the sky. Far more convincing than a triangle over, Arizona, the skies of Arizona.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. You are This goes back to something the late Werner von Braun said, that there was going to be a false flag.
Right.
Could this whole thing with Lue Elizondo be the beginnings of that false flag being engineered by that cadre of the legacy people? He might be convinced that what he's seen, they fed him what they wanted him to see. And, it's like, oh my God, this they knew that he was the guy to get it. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm saying
that's good.
we have to look at that. That
Yeah.
maybe he has been showed what they wanted him to see. Not so much.
And he's unwittingly.
He is unwittingly being the vanguard for this false flag. Because Werner von Braun, face it, y'all, he was a genius. We wouldn't have had. Yeah, he was a Nazi in that, like, yes, he was a card-carrying Nazi, but there was a thing. George Patton brought up a very good point. He said you couldn't be the dog catcher without having your Nazi card. And think of it from, okay, let's go off topic a little bit. From his point of view, from Werner von Braun's point of view, he loves his country as much as we love, a contemporary American or, Brit love their country.
Right.
In his mind, he is creating the V1 and the V2 out of patriotism and out of a desire to see his country win.
Okay, so I have to say I have a moral objection. I have a moral objection to somebody who does terrible things in the name of patriotism.
It does.
You're right. You're right, though. I think let's not let that escape, and I don't want to dismiss that.
Let's not belabor that, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so I just think that it is interesting that he allegedly said this on his deathbed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. He's got nothing to gain. He's gonna die.
Well, you got what he said, and then you got what Eisenhower said. Watch that. If you haven't seen it, look up
wait.
Eisenhower,
the military-industrial complex, and
yes, you look in that man's eyes, and he's haunted by the way he's looking.
Wait.
He knew something was coming up. He knew that there was.
Here's my thing about. There's a lot that you just brought up. There's so much. Let me go over a couple of things. Remind me. I wrote it down here. Collins Elite. We'll talk about that because Lou did.
Yes,
bring it up.
Collins Elite. Yes.
Big deal. We'll talk about that in a second. You mentioned something earlier about. Oh man, what was it that? There was a point that I wanted to bring up because we were talking about oh my gosh, the potential for there being a false flag, right? The Werner von Braun saying that there's going to be a faked alien invasion to help push forward a new. Okay, there's a lot that I have issue with this Project Bluebeam, right? The idea that there's this initiative, a plan or whatever, that they're going to fake an alien invasion to help to subdue the population, to create a one world government. And honestly, this seems more like a QAnon conspiracy. Not that QAnon created it, but it seems more like it's analogous to a QAnon conspiracy than it is something that's more likely to happen. I think there are far more sinister things that can be done by the government than faking an alien invasion. I think that actually sounds ridiculous. To be totally honest, it sounds very stupid. Not by the people that
have the effect they thought it would.
That's what I mean. If they wanted to do that, they're dumb. Not the people that believe that. I think that if the government is planning a Project Bluebeam, they're idiots. Like, we have the internet. Like, you can't just we got live streaming and you can't do that. You're not going to be able to fake an alien invasion. They'll live stream it and be like, wait a minute, there's clearly a hologram, right? You can see the glitch right here. It's just, we're not for 100 years. We're not there yet. I mean, you could tell drones today, we're not there yet.
You got people like me running around. You got.
I got two cell phones, right?
Exactly.
Oh crap! You can't see it through but we got cell phones. Everybody has a phone. point. That's not a. Let me tell you what's not happening. When people do see a real UFO, they're not pulling out their cell phone. They're not doing that because there's something about that experience that they don't even think about it. There's something that's more intimate about a real UFO encounter than if you hear a jet in the sky and you're like, "Oh, look, that's cool." No. This is like stop your life. Everything dissolves, and the only thing that's happening is that UFO sitting in the sky right there. It happens to so many people all the time. Okay,
Well, it
and
happened to me.
the nature
I
of
mean,
that experience is not that of a hologram, false, fake hologram in the sky. Like it just. Now, I will say, if we do have the tech, remember, within close proximity, they can create this effect that has time dilation. So lost time. There's an explanation for that lost time. Elizondo mentioned in the book, the idea that in his interviews afterwards, that the reason why there may be an explanation for people having lost time when encountering these beings. They're taken
getting it.
into, they're in the
It's like
bubble.
being the proximity of a quantum, like when you get near a black hole
Right.
time. And if these things are using, what's that called? There's this, for crying out loud. It was right there. A
I
quantum
don't know.
singularity.
I don't know. Quantum entanglement? Quantum.
Well, that's also something that they might be using for communication. But no, when you have a singularity, a quantum singularity is a fancy word for a black hole. It's but if they're using that to warp the space, when you get near a black hole, there's a time dilation effect. So when you get in there, all of a sudden time is going standard, regular, Earth time. You're in a field, or you're close enough to that field that your personal time is slowed down. Then when you come out of it, an hour or two has passed you by while you were in that field, where within the effects of that field.
Yeah, and there's something else that I don't want to escape here either. Two things. He mentioned the biology of these beings. Do you remember that?
Oh,
he mentions something that Bob Lazar talked about. That they have 3 heart chambers. There were like 3 chambers.
Oh yeah, 3-chambered heart.
Yeah. I'm not a biologist. You can help me understand this. But he said something to the, like they have 3 heart chambers. It's in the book. That they might not be evolved like, and I've always thought this before he ever wrote the book. I've been talking about this. That they might not have evolved like us, but they may have been engineered according to the biology. That means that someone studied the biology. He's privy to that information. They've discovered these 3 heart chambers, among some other differences, obviously,
right,
and that they may be synthetic biological organisms.
Well, doesn't he come right out and say that there's like what we call the Nordics are running the show, and that these other shorter, smaller, they're more or less like biomechanoids. It's like they're purpose built.
They seem more, yeah. But they also I mean, there's praying mantis. There's like the mantid ones. There's the tall grays, the short grays, the mid-sized grays. There's the mantids and the Nordics, and he mentions a bunch of different things. But I don't remember him talking about the potential for the ones running the show. I don't remember that, to be honest. I could have just slipped my mind.
I might. Then again, like you. I've been chasing other.
There's so many things. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, it might be confusing.
But I just find it interesting that we're getting an explanation from Lue Elizondo. Guys, he went to Dopser to get this stuff approved to be talked about, and the Pentagon, they're denying. John Greenwald has essentially confirmed through this FOIA process Elizondo did work for the ATIP program. He was the director of ATIP. This is according to the documents that were FOIA pulled. This isn't a guess or like a made-up story or a lie or an embellishment. This is a fact. So we're going to hear
what made it look kind of hinky was the fact that they pulled when that cadre, or call them the legacy, diverted his $10 million budget.
Okay,
And
that was
now
yeah,
all of a sudden he's got his regular job playing dirty
right.
pool like that. Okay, now ATIP has to be done in addition to what we're funded for.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
mean, and also
they were,
it's yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that was almost like that was a strategic move on the higher of the people wanting to suppress. Because like, well, now when he comes through and says he
Plausible
was
deniability.
possible deniability, and it's like, and he hasn't got anything to back himself up because we stole his money and he had to do it under the table.
So
Are
it's
they think
frustrating.
are they smart enough to think that far ahead? I mean, it's like
Oh, I mean,
playing
why not?
chess.
No.
Probably, yeah. I mean, these people
I
have been
really
at
want
it a long time.
one of these days. I'm gonna go over some of Peter. I would love to talk to Peter Levenda. I don't even know how to reach out to him, but I will. Well, I think I actually do. I think I actually do. I tried reaching out to him on Twitter once, but I was like, he's never gonna talk to me. I should try harder. But I want to get into the idea that listen, the Collins elite. Let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
So, who are the Collins elite according to the lore? Okay, this is as much as I understand as of right now. I'm sure I'll learn more later on, and people can probably throw in the comment section or on Spotify. They can talk about it. The Collins elite are a group of religious Christian fundamentalists, if you will. Maybe that's a derogatory term. I don't know. That that believe that the phenomena is of satanic origin. Now, I always ask myself, like, are you kidding me? Like, that sounds ridiculous. Like, it does sound ridiculous at face value.
On the surface, yeah.
However, there are some very interesting truths that I think are relevant in relation to the conflict. There's a documentary, but also a YouTube video by a YouTube channel. I don't particularly agree with them about 90+% of what they arbitrary number. A lot of what they say, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? But there's this one video that I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is any of this true? It's by a YouTube channel called End Times Production. I'll send you the video. In this video, let me just see if I can find the title of the video first, because while we're talking about this. In this video, they talk about the Collins Elite, about Jack Parsons and the secret space program, and how there's like they were literally performing. Listen, not conjecture, huh?
Jack Parsons was very heavily into Thelema, which was an offshoot of Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn that got, some say, corrupted by Aleister Crowley.
Right.
Thelema uses
yes,
sexual energy as the catalyst for the magic, and Jack Parsons was into it. There was a series for a while called Strange Angel that was based on a book about Jack Parsons. The cat was brilliant, but he was, just to say, he was a complicated man. JPL was his baby, but he eventually, his behavior got so egregious that they pretty much kicked him out of his own company.
So this is really interesting to me because I didn't know that aspect about the trail back to like Aleister Crowley. By the way, he was influenced by Aleister Crowley. I knew that. But he was a co-founder of Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah, the joke was when Jet Propulsion Laboratory, it was actually Jack. The joke was they called it Jack Parsons Laboratory because Jack Parsons was pretty much the rocket. Robert Goddard started it, rocketry, but Jack Parsons and his group took it and made it what it is now. He was the foundation that Werner von Braun. Matter of fact, he actually got some of his ideas from von Braun, because that's one of the things that got Jack Parsons in trouble. Is he had written back and forth to Werner von Braun about rocket science, and that was like, wait a minute, you're having conversations with a Nazi. That came back to bite him later. You know, they did the same. They did sort of the same thing to Jack that they did to Oppenheimer when it came to his clearance. They got even with him.
I have not seen that movie.
Dude, it is amazing. I've watched it twice now.
Do you know what bothers me about? Listen, I try to tell people all the time. I have such a busy life. Like people do not understand, and I'm not going to make this show about my life, but I don't think people get what it's like to have a child. We have 9. We have 9 children, and like anybody who has a kid understands. They're all going back to school now, most of them anyway. There's a baby. There's I have a full-time job. She runs a business. We run a voice acting business together. Like, it's not like I'm just like hanging out. Although I do that with my family sometimes. And so the time that I have, I use every minute that I can on my own to research, to study, to do the videos and watch this and watch things and also like to, anything that I can do to research and consume information. I do that in between all of this. And then I do these shows. Like it's so difficult for me to have that extra. I want to watch Oppenheimer. I want to watch this. I'm always doing research and watching documentaries for research. If I have leisure time, that's my leisure, is a documentary, or maybe, why do people think Alien Romulus is such an important movie to watch? I watched that movie, which I regret. I mean,
well, one of the things you will see, one of the things that struck me, because I have seen Oppenheimer, the smear job. I kept thinking, okay, the way they smeared Oppenheimer and the maneuverings they did on him, it's the same playbook they used on Lewis.
It's indicative. I gotta watch it. You inspired me
the same
to
damn playbook.
See, I think that cinema tells,
which is part of what. Yeah, that's part of what got me between. Like I said, in the beginning when I found out that he and I had similar educational background in the biological sciences, it's like, well, he's not dumb, because I know how I struggled with that. Yeah, and that, and then when I saw keeping what they did to Oppenheimer in the back of my, and what they're doing to him, it's like the same playbook. They're putting this guy in a supposedly no-win situation. Good news is Oppenheimer was vindicated, so Lue will most likely be. As far as I'm concerned, Lue doesn't need to be vindicated.
So. No,
I think he's above board. But like I said, if he is presenting truthfully what he has been shown. Now, I'm not excluding the fact that he might have been shown what he was supposed to be shown
as a potential
further for a potential. But I don't think he's lying about anything. He's not part of the subterfuge, if there is any.
Yeah. I want to before I forget, because I will. The ADHD does not help. Collins Elite. So Jack Parsons.
Right.
So I think when I heard the name Jack Parsons, see, I've been following Peter Levenda very intensely following Peter Levenda. And there's a lot that I don't understand, especially about the whole, a lot of the historical context. There's a lot that I don't have context for, that I history, that I think I really need to get into to help to really understand some of the history that he talks about. Meaning, he mentions historical events that I'm not aware of, and in great detail, and with information that I just wasn't aware of. But the one thing that he says is that the Collins Elite, they're a Christian fundamentalist group who believe that the phenomena is satanic. Why? Because this is why they believe this. Forget about they're Christians, so they believe something crazy because they're Christian. No. They're not dumb people. They're not just fanatics. They believe that because they were involved in these occult rituals that were used by Aleister Crowley, the Thelma, right? They were used by Aleister Crowley's Thelma to summon entities from other dimensions, other realities, and it was all a part of the UFO phenomena. They were summoning, almost like bringing Skinwalker Ranch phenomena during these rituals. And over time, they realized this stuff, guys, is what the Bible, what they believed. Like, this is satanic. This is like they're summoning entities. They were literally, according to the lore, the Collins elite. If you believe that, if you're in a Collins elite at all, if you heard that term before, it's not just lore. This is a fact. These people were conducting rituals with people within the secret space program, right? The official space program, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They were doing rituals to summon entities from other places, other realities. And Peter Levendo, he writes about that stuff. He writes about the government and the military and figures within doing these rituals in history. And they were summoning these entities and having other phenomena happen within these rituals. And the Collins Elite were like, screw that. Like, this is not good. And there's a whole lot behind that I don't have. This is not an episode for the Collins Elite, but I could do an entire episode on the Collins Elite. But the long story short is they have foreknowledge of another side of the phenomena, one of which is that you can summon them. A way to do that is through these rituals, through these summoning rituals and so forth, that the government and some people within government and military and apparently tech and all that, they know how to do this stuff, guys. They know how to do this stuff, and they're doing it. I mean, people talk about Stephen Greer's Contact, right? His what the heck is it called? Close Encounters of the whatever fifth kind, I think it is. Right, the fifth kind, where you intentionally engage the phenomena.
I think that's right.
CET5.
CET5.
So he's got so why not the opposite of that, right? The opposite is that of gaining power and wealth and control. And if you're doing these things for that purpose, the kinds of entities you're summoning are probably not going to be the ones that are doing light shows in your backyard, telling you they love you. It's probably going to be something very different, right? If you're a part of the defense intelligence agents and the defense of an entire nation, then you're probably not going to be summoning the friendly ones, right? If this is what you want weapons, you want technology, you want power, you want information about your enemy and how to destroy them. By the way, Lue mentioned an incident where him and a couple of remote viewers, newsflash, remote viewing is real. Yeah. They said they remote viewed a target, and the target said in the newspaper where he lives that he was visited by an angel or whatever, 4 angels.
Yeah, it scared the guy. Yeah, it scared the guy into coming out. The 5 of them.
Like, what?
Yeah, the 5 he saw the 5 angels, and it was the remote viewing crew. Just standing over. Yeah, scaring him. Yeah.
So I mean, if this is true, we're not talking about aliens from Zeta Reticuli. We're talking about something far more like all-encompassing, something that's very akin to why they keep mentioning this, quantum mechanics. Far more akin to like that level of, if you will, science, the science and nature of reality. It's like, what is reality? The Donald Hoffman, right? What is it that our senses are deceiving us about the true nature of reality? That
we've only got the 5 senses.
That's they're only designed to help us reproduce. And what is the best thing to help us?
The very narrow band of the electromagnetic, the visible light spectrum is what we see. Yeah. So anything we see with our naked eye that we're not using our technology, either infrared or ultraviolet,
as extensions of our natural abilities, we have tech.
Right. It's just It's just we're at the mercy of that little narrow band of white light that the visible light spectrum of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, and it goes into both directions probably forever. Our technology has only allowed us to go to what we've gone to, but it's
my favorite thing to hear is from skeptics who say there's no life. There may be life out there, but it's probably a single-celled organism or a bacteria on a planet. How stupidly ridiculous. We just discovered that because of redshift or whatever, there may be the universe is twice as old as we once thought. It used to be what 13.7 billion years old. Now
Yeah,
it's 20
and it may be
or whatever. Not 13. Was it 13 or 12? Now it's like
13.1 billion years and now or something
now
like
it's
yeah, and
almost
it's
double that
well
because we
the
have
fact that
technology.
it's expanding faster than the speed of light. So we are limited by what that 13.1 million light year or
Yeah, well, one day it
that
just doubled, right? One day it just
but
it's double that.
but it's accelerating away from us. There's a leading edge that we'll never see because it's beyond our, we're looking at the light, but it's traveling. The
Well,
universe
speaking
could
of,
be 5 times, it could be
or
infinitely bigger
100
than
times,
we
yeah,
see. Yeah,
even more.
because we are limited by the speed of light. We're limited to how far out we can see. We're seeing there, 13.1 billion years into the past, but there's
So
probably
there's
20, there might be 26 billion years forward that we'll never see the light from because it's going away from us.
so even more interesting, and in some ways I think disturbing, because I've read, you know, I know about the three body problem. I'm gonna read the Dark Forest, but I hear it's pretty clear that we probably shouldn't be sending nudes out to aliens. NASA did that, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that I'm getting theoretical here, and I'm not a physicist. I just read the books. I remember the points. I understand the ideas. That dark matter makes up more of the visible of the universe than the visible light spectrum that we see. Right? Dark matter is or antimatter or whatever. It's something. It's what we can't see. There's an entire universe we cannot see. First of all, we can barely see the universe that we can glimpse. Right?
Right.
The pictures and the telescopes, they give us an idea of what's out there. We recreate those images through AI and says, "Oh, this is what it looks like." We can't even see what it really looks like. We don't really know what it looks like. We know what it might look like based off of an extrapolation of the data. However, there's an entire universe we can't even detect or see. We only see the byproduct of that.
Right.
And so, can you imagine closing your eyes and you're like, and you feel, and you're like, oh, wow, the whole world is made out of whatever the heck is in front of me right now. Like, what? You don't even know what you're looking at, let alone what you're not looking at. Well, you can't see. There's stuff in between and beyond things you can't even see. It seems so ridiculous. But here's what I think is, again, more interesting, if not disturbing. It's not out there. Something is here. Something is here. It's not out there. It's not in Zeta Reticuli. It's not, in Alpha Centauri. It's here.
Yeah.
And it's been here. Which means, again, you just like
We're
use your
moving
imagination.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah, something's up, guys. And I just don't think that, I don't think we're looking at this from the perspective that we should be looking at it from. I think people are being caught up in the minutia. Like, seriously, they're literally being caught up in the minutia. And I think that the minutia is important, but not as important is what is happening. Okay, I close my eyes. Oh, the universe is soft. Or no, there's more than that, right? There's so much more. And we're just looking at what's right in front of our faces. We're not extrapolating what that might mean for us. What does it mean that there's something that's flying around in our airspace? What does it mean that there's something that's far more intelligent and more technologically intelligent than us? What does it mean that these things might be biological? What does it mean that these things might be biologically created organisms? Are you kidding me? Do you understand look at what it takes to make a human being? You know the biology behind that.
Right.
What would it take for us to make one of us?
Genesis. God created man. We ourselves, according to
any of that, all the religious texts, all of them,
we are created beings
by another intelligence.
By another intelligence. And one of the things that struck me about that is because I see evolution. I believe that there is a creator.
Right.
Okay, I'm not so sure
So
about the fuzzy happy. I think there's a cosmic intelligence that does things, and we're one of the things it did. But so I think of evolution as a tool in this creator's toolbox. We're created. It's like, okay, let's take these monkeys and see what we can do with them. Okay. But anyway,
yeah.
you've got this. Somebody once said the odds of DNA, our DNA, just being created by random chance is the same as a tornado going through a junkyard and leaving a fully functioning 747 sitting in its wake. Given the time, it took roughly 4 billion years, 7 billion years for us to evolve. You had single-cell organisms.
3 billion years.
It took like 3 billion years for them to happen. And then it's like another 4 billion years for the eukaryotes to come up and evolve into,
I feel like this it's even faster than that. I think we've only been around for what, like 100 million years. Human beings, Homo sapiens have only been around for like 100 million years. Homo sapiens sapien. And when it comes to like let me just now you're making me pull up my old my old Darwinian evolution books here. Hold on, not my book, but let me pull this back up here.
Conventional wisdom, I think, says we've only been a species for like 500,000, like 100,000 years, or something like that.
So it was 100,000 years. My bad.
People like but there's people like Graham Hancock that says, "Oh no, we go back further." But it's just
I don't know why I said. Yeah, well, DNA. There's the law of thermodynamics. Like everything is ultimately reaching this heat death, right? We're all decaying. DNA is constantly losing its integrity every generation. It loses some integrity. But I see here it's 200,000 to 300,000 years. I had to Google this. Sorry, guys. I apologize. My Darwinian evolution is not great. But it was 200,000 to 300,000 years that we've been around, and primates in general have been around for 5 to 7 million years. So, like, we haven't even been, and the Earth is 3 billion years old, allegedly. The Earth is 3 billion years old, allegedly. That's what they think, according to what carbon dating or whatever the freak. And that I don't think it's by carbon dating, by the way, but also that the universe it used to be 13.1 billion years. Now it's double that. 26 something billion years. So like we don't know. We do not know. But if we were even going by the numbers, 200,000 years, seriously, you telling me that we, like humans, have only been around for 200,000 years? You think that's so? I think that if that's true, somebody created us. And by the way, Elizondo suggests that. He suggests that DNA is the marker, is the thing that's left behind by another intelligence. He suggests this. He suggests that something created DNA and left here, like, look what I can do, kind of thing. That's what he suggests. John Ramirez suggests that.
That might have been like there might have been a civilization, maybe 20 million or 20 billion years ago. The first organisms to come up, and they were alone. They were the only life in the universe, and they got to this point. It's like, this is a lot of wasted space. Let's just start sowing the seeds of, go panspermia, I guess is the.
No, see, here's the thing. I think it's far. Again, I don't think that's big enough. I think. Because I think because of what's been presented to me, right, to us all, I think we need to do what they say, consider quantum mechanics. And I'm not a physicist, so whatever, take this with a grain of salt. Armchair physicist, armchair philosopher, armchair intellectual. I think that something from an entirely different dimension, whatever that means, is able to cross over to ours and do things here. I think there are more than just one thing. I don't think Zeta Reticuli. I think interdimensional. I thought this before David Grush came forward and mentioned interdimensional. I thought this before. I'm thinking something more, I thought maybe, I don't like the term spiritual just because I think it has a negative connotation. It's too tied to like the new agey, spiritual movement.
I got you.
But the idea of quantum mechanics suggesting that the multiverse theory, the idea that there could be an entire universe vibrating at a different frequency right here with us, just not aligned to where we can see it, and that there's something else that is far beyond what we think in terms of like, oh, it's 1 million years old. What if it's 2 million years? What if it's an infinity beyond us? Right?
Yeah.
We can't even imagine. What is an infinity? What does that mean? But to another dimension, what if infinity is calculated? And that there's an intelligence that is literally eternal, or multiple different ones that are eternal or have lived for hundreds of billions of years in their timeline, and then come over here and they're like, oh, let's do something just here because we can.
We'll get into the relativity of it. To a fruit fly, we are eternal beings. To a mayfly that lives 24 hours, so what if there is something, I agree, there's something that is interacting with us that is
right
in scale like we are to
now.
a
Listen,
mayfly.
remember what Elizondo said in that interview with Joe Rogan, the panda outfit. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That was
getting out in the panda outfit so they don't socialize. Yeah.
To the panda, it's like, okay, he's one of us. To us, it's like, what the heck? But to the panda, it doesn't.
Look at that guy in the panda.
It's different, but similar enough that the panda thinks that it's alike. And that's Lue is dropping all kinds of like, guys, this is what's going on. Like, this is what we've essentially concluded about the phenomenon, or at least theorized so far with what the data we have. Something is appearing to us just similar enough. This has been suggested by other people. Before Elizondo ever came out, Jacques Vallée been talking about this. By the way, Elizondo worked with Jacques Vallée. Are we paying attention? Like, I feel like the UFO community, half of it is not paying attention. Not because they can't. There's some smart people out there. It's because they don't want to. They reject the information. They're rejecting it.
The religion, like you said, the stuff that's coming up is not
doesn't fit their paradigm.
It doesn't fit their paradigm. It's not the dogma they want to hear. It's not the truth that they want to hear. So just let it go. Yeah. And the 100%. Problem is, if it's truth will literally become a fence post that everything else has to grow around. It's not going to be, it's like there's not versions of truth. Right. Truth is truth. I mean, by its only definition, it's not a version, it's a truth. It's just a solid point. Yeah, it's a singular thing. A quantum point, if you will. It's you don't go past this. You can go around it, you can go past, but you're going to come back to it. And I think we're in the early stages of that.
You made me think of something. Because we're approaching, kind of the end of our talk here, but I got a few more things to kind of bring up. But this is kind of what I've thought about the whole, like, who's in control of disclosure. It has been very strongly suggested that the phenomena is in control of disclosure. I believe this. One, if it wanted to, it could land on the White House lawn. Let me back this up. 0.5. They are clearly far more powerful than us, and there's nothing we can do to stop them, to change what they're doing, or fight them. 0.5. One, they are in control of the disclosure. We are not. They could land on the White House lawn. They do not. They are working clandestine. They are only showing themselves just enough to cause confusion, to cause frustration, to cause a religious fervor towards the phenomena, like they are like gods, giving some people messages of hope, giving some people messages of or promises of a future somewhere else, letting some people fly the craft, telling some people that they're populating some places in the universe, letting some people know that they are special, believing that they are special, telling them that there's something special about them. You're special to us. And yet, none of them get to know anything other than what they're being told.
Right.
How do they? No one is shown why are they special. They're always given these vague, very religious experiences where they can interpret it however they want to. And somehow they always interpret it the same way. They love us. They love you. They love me. I'm special. I'm here for a purpose, like a religion. Like a religion. They can, if they wanted to, show themselves. They do not. But they're okay with being interpreted religiously. That, to me, is bizarre. Now, another
It's
point.
manipulative.
It's
manipulative.
It is extremely manipulative. Extremely. Now, there's another thing, right? That's not an honest thing to do, by the way. The other thing is, we can say they could, or people can say, oh, the whole like they got a gun to the government's head. Don't say anything yet. And yet somehow there's an Elizondo, there's a David Grush, there's a Jacques Vallée who's investigated counts. There's a Betty and Barney Hill. There's a Travis Walton. There's a Rendlesham Forest incident. There's a ad infinitum of countless. There's entire text written about gods. Why? Why would they let this? Why would they allow this to happen? Because they're orchestrating what disclosure looks like for us.
Yeah.
It is. You can interpret it. You cannot interpret it any other way. You can, but then you wouldn't be honest with the data.
You're lying to yourself if you don't take the interpretation. Like you said, even like Elizondo said, if they were truly benevolent, would Fukushima have happened? They're not stepping in.
They watched it. They literally sat. They were sitting. The UFOs in
watching
nukes, right?
it. Yeah.
The book UFOs and Nukes. They literally sit there and watch these things. They're captured on video, according to these the UFOs and Nukes. According to other books, they sit and they watch nuclear explosions happen. Huh? They're watching us develop nuclear technology. They're watching us do this. You think that they're benevolent? Come on. To your point.
Yeah, more. If they're anything, they're neutral observers or neutral to the. Well, here again, we're attributing human morals.
Neutrality, benevolence, malevolence.
Yeah, we're couching them in human terms. They're not human. They may be so literally, their thought processes are probably so alien,
Not pun intended. Pun intended.
Yeah, we really literally have no idea what their motivations are. We don't know how they think. We don't know how they perceive. We don't, it's just like they are totally in as far as how they can present themselves as, we're your buddy.
We're your buddy.
Yeah, but deep down, I mean, what kind of motivation do they have? What kind of thought processes? They are literally creations from either another world, another planet, another dimension.
I can't imagine where I'm thinking. Honestly, it just seems more like a dimensional thing than a world thing. I could be wrong, but I don't see it, my friend.
Well, it's just like you got to wonder if it be because maybe that whole it is interdimensional, and that whole thing with the speed of light. Face it, even if you're traveling at the speed of light, when you're talking cosmic distances, that's slow.
Yeah.
The speed of light, 26 years to go to the next. It's just.
So I'm
maybe
thinking
this is a big petri dish. A big petri dish, and the speed of light is like the proto-slow you use to make those little microorganisms go so you can observe them.
So here's how I see it. Um, there's the element of time dilation, right? Actually, there's another thing. What we're here on
Space
Earth, right?
time, yeah,
Right. But if you're a thousand light years away, a second is many years or hundreds of years, or whatever, have passed here on Earth. Even a second, a thousand light years away. So depending on how far you are, even if you're gone for a second, unless you can travel back into time, if you're on this planet for 1 second, thousands of years have passed where your origin planet is. What purpose would you have to travel here? Unless you
right.
can travel backwards in the time, which that's not even theoretically possible. As far as I understand, you can't travel backwards, forwards in time. You can
Yeah,
slow or
we're
stop
doing
or
that
sync
right now.
in a sense, but not in a functional way. Not in a way that
Right.
is to the point where we can go back and change the event, the course of events in history. So the idea now, Tom DeLonge suggests that you can. That when you're in these craft, he suggests that you can travel backwards and forwards in time. Now, if that's true, then my theory is it could be other planetary. It could be. That would put a whole wrench in my whole, theory, which I'm okay with
But
adapting.
okay, what if biologicals can't travel faster than the speed of light? Okay, because just we
I don't
can't.
think I don't think they can. I don't think anything
But
can.
what if what we're seeing is like a mechanical something that can or can travel interdimensionally and doesn't have the biological stressors, and the ones that built those craft are coming. They're just coming, maybe
That's so
approach
funny.
it.
You would.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
like
suggestion.
these are it's a lot like what Lue Elizondo said about the threat preparation, and maybe
Uh,
these things are acting within what their program is,
oh man,
and
this guy.
the, the big thing is coming. Yeah, it's just coming slower.
That is the suggestion. Kind of the suggestion that I get, like that. That's the threat narrative, if you will. That is this threat scenario. That I think that is a potential. I don't know. Um, but if there are, Christopher Mellon mentioned they're tracking interstellar space, dude. Or they're tracking like space, like out there too, deep space. He said they're tracking deep space. Well, yes, they're here, but what if there is something coming? Tom DeLonge kind of suggests something to that effect. Like he said, he gave this example on a very random podcast somewhere out there. He's like, yeah, the phenomena is like, he gives this analogy. It's like a tank that's fully weaponized. It's got all this high tech stuff and all these guns and all these automatic weapons and all this stuff, and it's pointing all of its weapon systems at your house in your backyard. And one night you hear this loud bang, and you're in your underwear. You're laying in bed with your family, with your wife, and your kids are sleeping in the next room. And you get up, and all you got is a baseball bat. And you run to the back door in your underwear with the baseball bat, and you look outside the door, and you're faced with this giant tank, bigger than the house, right? I put that in there. And it's pointed all its guns at you, but it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. Now, in your mind, if you yell, that thing's probably like, an animal knows when it's going to be attacked. If you run, that it's coming for you. It's going to come for you, right? So instinctively, you don't do anything because you know that if you alert your neighbors, well, there's no surprise now. It's pointing its weapons at you. Clearly, there's some intention of hostility. Forget about anthropomorphization. This thing is fully weaponized. Something is about to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. And I can't do anything until I know for sure. And I can't do anything until I'm prepared. But all you got is your underwear and a baseball bat. What do you do? That's his analogy, guys. Now he's working with generals. That's kind of the thing that like stuck in my mind and my consciousness. Like, whoa, wait a minute. If this, now who knows what that means? But if this is true, then that type of scenario makes sense as to why Lue is like, we got it. I got to quit I have to leave these people. Do you think he would
We
leave
have
his
to wake
job?
up.
We
Right.
have to do like we got. You think he'd leave his job because there's lights in the sky? Come on, guys, please,
He
please.
admits and that's one of the things that took me a while to warm up to the book is, well, the same old story. It's like, I'm privy to things that I can't share. How many times have we heard that from different, sources? It's like, well,
Right.
I could say, non-disclosure. I can't tell you what I've seen. I can't. But he is somebody. If it's not him, it's whoever helped him write this. Is extremely
Meticulous.
clever at using
Meticulous.
the art. Yeah, because if you read there's subtext
Oh
in
yeah.
every chapter. It's like, I'm not saying this directly, but if you've got 3 brain cells to rub together, it's here for you to glean. So he's disclosing without disclosing.
Oh yeah.
He's inferring. He's a master at inferring things. But yeah, you're right. It's like right now we're the caveman in our loincloth with a club, looking at, say, if you took, and it's obvious that look the tank episode where the 2 parked tanks had.
Oh yeah. They shot
It
it.
wasn't deformed.
No,
it
no,
was
it was
like whatever went through, tunneled through in such a way that there was no deformation, there was no heat damage.
And
it
it
was just
wasn't
like
in
a
one.
cookie cutter.
It wasn't in one. It was in
Went through 2.
The exact same like the everything. The exact same hole in 2 tanks was a perfect hole, punched through
In an
each.
M1 Abrams tank that is designed to take a direct missile hit. I mean,
and survive it. This thing went
and survive it. It went through it.
So, yeah, why does he do that? Like, because he's a genius. This man is a mastermind. Listen, he's literally saying, like, this is their capability. This is what they're displaying. This is what they've been doing. And it appears to be a PPB, preparation for the battlefield. Like, they are preparing for something. And again, I don't think that even that is like, I think that people are right to say that's not enough information to say something wants to hurt us. It's not enough. But why would they do that? Why would anyone do that? To display their power, to show you what I can do. But also,
anytime you flex muscle like that, it's a threat display.
it's like a gorilla banging its chest in the wild. Only this gorilla is intelligent. It hasn't attacked us. It's just letting you know at every turn, every way, everything you come up with, the gorilla shows you how much of a play toy that thing is. It'd be like you being at home and you build a wall and a gorilla comes and he literally just like punches a hole through it and then just runs away. Why'd you do that? So you build a bigger wall and it comes over and it punches another hole through that and it runs away. And then you do it again and it takes a banana and somehow there's a peel on the other side, on your side of the wall, but there's no hole. It's like, wait a minute. Not only can the gorilla punch a hole through it, how did he get through the wall? This is the 3rd generation wall I've built, and he didn't have to punch a hole through it. He just went through. That's what this thing is doing.
Like the orbs that Lue talks about, just coming into the house, and and they come through his walls.
Yeah. Watch out for the blue ones.
Yeah, exactly. Watch the blue ones.
Yeah, Jim Simmons still won't talk about what those things look like that came to his house. He still will not. So Jim Simmons mentioned in the Engaging Phenomena podcast years ago, I think a year or 2 ago, he said he had an encounter, having investigated the phenomena and so forth, with him and his wife, and it was terrifying. He was not love, light, and happiness. They're here to help us. He was terrified, and he said he will not tell anyone what it looks like, I think for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons he gave was because he's never seen the form of this phenomena. He'd never heard of this form before, whatever it looked like. I wish I knew what it was. What was it? I don't know. But I do think that that's, again, like some people know, but and they're trying to tell us, read them. Jim Semivan said, read Whitley Strieber's Them. Jim Semivan worked with Tom DeLonge and Peter Levenda. Jim Semivan, Lue Elizondo did a book signing with Tom DeLonge on the God's Men book. Why is he book signing with Tom DeLonge on his book about gods and men? Do you know what those books talk about? Guys, this is not a, this is a there is a very clear message here. It's not just here. It hasn't just always been here. It's everywhere. It's somewhere else though. It's also somewhere else, meaning this interdimensional aspect of it, this element of another dimension. And it's popping in and out of it. Again, I'm no longer in need of defending myself, although I probably still will defend my perspective, because I have to say it's not belief based. It's based off of the data and information presented. And I think that if you're looking at it, it's pretty clear. There is an intelligence that could potentially have a hostile intent towards humans. Now, when I say hostile, I'm not anthropomorphizing it. What is it doing? It's doing things like that gorilla. It wants you to know you're not going to its house. It's coming to yours. It's going to your neighbors. It's going to your neighbor's wife.
Without invitation, and you can't do a damn thing about it.
And it lets you know that you can't do anything about it.
You can't do a damn thing about it. Right. It's like, hey, that's your latest fighter aircraft? Boom. It's like,
I mean, so it's undeniable. I'm just glad we're here, man. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we had a chance to, to not just have the conversation about, to finally talk about. I've been waiting for this book patiently. This is the first thing I've actually patiently waited for. I was like, you know what? I'm okay with waiting for this because there's so much out there already. Lou's already told us so much, but there was I wasn't sure I was going to get anything new. It was more about getting this solid confirmation, and this he did build a picture for us to see. Look here. Look at this.
I'm not sure that we.
It's not complete. It's not complete.
Part of me is we need to listen to what the man has to say, but also keep in mind he is seeing everything from a perspective, his own perspective.
10,000 foot, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he's seeing things. But but what he says, the way he's interpreting it, it really isn't open for any other kind of interpretation.
No.
I mean, I guess
he says,
there's still that part of me that wants to think that the Federation, the kind ball, the child of the 60s wanting to think that. Yeah. But no, it's the evidence seems to support that they are not necessarily. They don't necessarily have our best. They don't have the best of intentions toward us. Our interests are not. They don't have our best interests at heart. It would have seemed. It's almost like, very much like we're in a holding pattern. It's fixing to get real, and we're going to let it's coming. Here's your warning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I think. I think, I imagine after reading this book, especially, I think, and then kind of going over a lot of some of the old material as I can. Peter Levenda stuff, the Tom DeLonge comments, the Jim Semivan comments, the Jacques Vallée books, and thinking about this idea that there is there's a clear non-physical element to this, an element of either multidimensional or supernatural or whatever you want to call it. The thing that exists between atoms. I say that as not literal, but you know what I mean. Right. That there's an entire existence that we just can't see, and I think that thing that whatever is separating us from them, it's not holding. whatever it is, whether it be where a directive, do no harm, or do not interfere, or leave these people alone, leave these don't go over to their planet, or whatever you want to believe about the whatever that whatever has been keeping them from just full on engaging. I think that thing is either not being listened to, not being respected, or it's no longer there. Whatever it was that was keeping them.
Well,
from
yeah, if there is like some interstellar government, governments
by the way,
change. Yeah.
By the way, the Collins elite, the suggestion, I'm going to say in that video, the suggestion was that they believed that there was a faction in the government who believed that they're working with this other intelligence that they were summoning that wants to have a war against another intelligence that we would call God. That this intelligence that they're summoning through these rituals, this is a part according to the Collins elite, that they were like, wait a minute, they're preparing, this intelligence that they're summoning is preparing for a war against another intelligence, and they're using some people. I don't know, man. That's too much for me I don't know about that. For me, that's too much, because I don't think there's not enough.
If you take that, couch that in Judeo-Christian terms, a war in heaven between Lucifer and God. And if Lucifer isn't thinking biblical, Lucifer and Satan are not the same thing. There's a very good book out there called the Origin of Satan. Discusses how Satan originally, all Satan is, he works for God. He's an obstacle. He's put, an adversary. That's all he is an adversary. But he works for God, big G, right. God. And that how, as the years and the Jewish faith schismed, how Satan became this evil, the father of lies, evil. But really, that's a evolution of something else. But the Lucifer, the fallen angel, is a different entity. Lucifer is so powerful that if you go by the lore, he's powerful enough that God can't just wipe him out. If you've got something that pesky that's screwing with your creation, and you're God and you're that powerful, why wouldn't you just stuff him out he can't? So that if you
we got to do a part two. We got to do a part two. Part two, angel, demons, and God.
No, I'm just saying if you take what you were saying about two forces, like we're ants in the playground of giants, and couch it in terms of religious texts that we already have, they're pretty much the same story. You might just change the names in them, but the story is the same. The narrative, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, like Richard Dolan was saying it's used. I mean, it's the story. It's the same. It looks like it's the same players. You've got diametrically opposed forces, and we're kind of stuck in the middle.
It would make listen, we got it at some point when you have the time. We got to do a part two, and I'm serious. It's going to be about angels, demons, and gods. Yeah. And of course, we'll throw in the Collins elite, do a little bit more research. I got some stuff to share with you. That would be really interesting to include to the conversation. But honestly, it's a huge topic. Even that would be like a part 1 too, because there's a lot there, and it's interesting, and we can relate it to the phenomena because it's allegedly potentially a part of the phenomenon. There's just a lot that I'm not prepared for to have that conversation yet, and we are literally seconds away from the end of the show. So for now. Will you come back to us at a later time, my friend?
Dude, I am always a Facebook message away, a phone call away. Whenever you need me or whenever you want to do this, I look forward to our conversations. They make me think.
I appreciate that, because honestly, it's hard to, I talked to some very interesting people. There were three people. There are three people in my time having conversations where there's this intellectual, philosophical exploration into all these things. That's my perspective. And you are one of them. Like, you are one of the only three people that I can talk to on live about these things from a perspective that's intelligent. That's really, and I don't mean that nobody else is intelligent. I mean, like, how should we look at the phenomena? What are the logical points that we can take from this? And how do we view this that's stuff that you don't get from most people. It's mostly like they hyper focus on the data. Like, at 1965, this happened, and this person talked to this person. And that's important information. But why? That's what I appreciate about having these conversations.
There's the facts, and then there's the reality that the facts are a symptom of. And then you go out. The picture keeps getting bigger.
That's it. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking for those connections, my friend. So with that, man, I'm actually gonna message you after this here. I'm gonna close this out. I'm gonna upload this video. It is gonna be out there tonight, but we're going to be on radio next Tuesday. So if you're listening to this, it's Tuesday. Thank you for being here. If you're listening to this on Tuesday on the radio, but if you're on Facebook and other and Spotify, you're listening to this tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on when I upload this at 1:00 in the morning. And with that, my friends, Eric, thank you for being here, man. Say goodbye to the audience, everybody.
See y'all later. Looking forward to doing this again.
I am definitely going to be hitting you up, man, because right now I'm solo. So it'd be good to bring you on as a continued guest and to have these conversations. So
I'm at your disposal, and it's an honor. Thank you very much.
The honor is mine, my friend. And with that, everybody, peace, Eric. I'll catch you next time, and I'll hit you up with a Facebook message, my friend. Take care. All right, everybody, we are done for today. We'll be back again with more from Dr. Door. I love you guys. It's been fun. Catch you next time. Peace.
In the lab of wonders where the cosmos collide, equations unravel and the secrets reside. Dr. Force, the master, breaking the mold, unfolding the codes, letting truth be told. Navigating the unseen, drifting through space, contemplating the infinite, time's woven lace, exploring the unknown, where the seeds are sown, with Dr. Door as our guide through worlds overgrown, bending reality, dancing through the fray, in the dimensions of wonder, we'll find our way. Dancing with black holes, bypassing the strain, wormholes like dreams tethered to the vein. Einstein's shadows linger, relativity's dance, in dimensions unknown we catch a glance. The pulse of the cosmos, a rhythm divine, each shift a new paradigm, a step in time, exploring the unknown, where the seeds are sown, with Dr. Door as our guide through worlds overgrown, bending reality, dancing through the fray, in the dimensions of wonder, we'll find our way. The pulse of the cosmos, a rhythm divine, each shift a new paradigm, a step in time.